Good evening. I would like to welcome everybody to the Tuesday, May 27th, 2025 council meeting. All councilors, please turn the microphones on. Roll call. Mayor Bowman is absent and excused. I will, as deputy mayor, I will be running the meeting this evening for her request. We do have a quorum. Councilor Bagley has agreed to read the invocation. Dan?
Please join me in an attitude of prayer. We pray for our country at all times, that all citizens are safe, healthy, and happy. We pray for wisdom for all those who guide and govern. Help this government body in every situation to know and to do the things that are right and just, with soundness of judgment in making vital decisions. We pray for the peacemakers, that the holy life-giving spirit may ever dwell in their hearts, and the barriers of fear, suspicion, and hatred may fall. This we pray to the Holy Father. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Will you rise and please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any declaration of any conflict of interest from any council member this evening? Public forum. I'm not going to read the whole shoot and bang. Every person will be given 3 minutes. Daniel will be running the timer for us. Oh, it's a five, excuse me. 5 minutes. So, first of all, Danielle, do we have anything that came in? Okay, we have nothing extra. So anybody that wants to speak, please come up to the podium, state your name and address. And, oh, that's fine.
Good evening. My name is Bruce Egglestein. I live on Coolidge here in Caribou. I burned a copy off of the agenda for tonight, and I also went through the packet. The thing that really caught my interest was item 12 on the agenda, H and I. Ordinances for blight ordinance and nuisance ordinance. I read through them. To me, they look good. It covers a lot of the necessary things that we need, and I appreciate that. I know there's been a lot of work done on those. The one concern I have is in both of them, it mentions repeatedly code enforcement officer. That is the person who would be in charge on making sure that these, if it pass, are followed. We do not have a code enforcement officer. My concern is you're reviewing this and you might be getting the cart ahead of the horse, so to speak. Once we have a certified code enforcement officer, I would think that person, he or she, would want to review these ordinances because they may have some very substantial input on for implementation or any changes and so forth. So it's fine if you want to look at this, but I would say that you can't really approve it because we do not have a code enforcement officer. Because who would implement these if we do not have one? Because the way they are written, it falls in that category for a code enforcement officer, and we don't have one. So I'm just like you to keep that in mind. Don't get the cart ahead of the horse. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Anybody else from the audience, public forum?
A lot of new faces since last time I was here. As I was sitting here thinking about this, I thought about what I always told my kids who both graduated from Caribou High School. Stand for what you believe and speak truth, even if your voice shakes. So tonight, I'm going to do that. My name is Sandy Merritt, and I am still legally the owner of my family home on 35 York Street. Since the last time I addressed this council, many things have come to pass concerning my case. For instance, the city's attorney, Richard Solomon, worked with 2 multi-million-dollar law firms and 1 multi-billion-dollar insurance company, Zurich North American Insurance, to suppress my constitutional right to be heard by illegally transferring my amended counterclaim to Bangor, where their attorneys, with the help of the clerks, tried to bury my case from the public. They forged orders never reviewed by a judge and attached signature pages to proposed orders wholly created and submitted by the attorneys themselves. In addition, just 5 days after spending 6 weeks with my mother at the Caribou Hospital, where she passed away on March 1st, 2024, Solomon and his conspirators chose this time to attack me legally in hopes that I would never figure out the fraud they committed on the court. I have been gang-stalked, manipulated, lied to, and maliciously attacked because of false accusations planted on social media and local news articles claiming that the illegal foreclosure was filed because I was behind on my mortgage. However, if that was truly the case, the need for the aforementioned acts would not have been necessary. The truth is that these things weren't done to me because of foreclosure, but it was to bury my amended counterclaim, exposing the housing heist that happened here in 2020 when the country was shut down and beyond. Today, I filed a complaint in the Caribou Superior Court exposing the violations of my due process and the fraud upon the court. Contrary to popular belief, I am not seeking monetary compensation from this city. However, I am seeking systematic change. Susan Collins just announced her bid for re-election. Therefore, this would be a great time to address the corruption that plagues this city, ensuring that the top 1% get richer and the bottom 99 get poorer. On May 25th, 2023, the Supreme Court of the United States of America issued a 9-0 decision to halt property tax windfalls. Instead of the city of Caribou accepting this ruling as the law of the land, I sadly watched the council try to figure out how to keep it going at the November 2023 meeting, even a council member suggesting somebody needs to call Susan. Since there seems to be a lack of educated and ethical attorneys in this county to explain how this case really affects you, I will do the honor. You see, not only did it require you to cease keeping the proceeds after you sold it to brokers, it gave standing to all the citizens you previously did it to sue you for the proceeds that you have previously made. 80% of this country cheers Trump and Muscon as they expose corruption on the left, but never want to speak about the corruption on the right.
20 seconds left.
Tonight, that changes. If there's anybody watching or knows anybody that has their house taken for back property taxes, you can reach out to me on social media, and I will help you navigate your way through the process of obtaining any proceeds owed to you by this city. You can reach me on social media or by email at Sandy Merritt, SandyMarrett, @proton.me. Change happens when light exposes darkness, and Susan Collins' hometown needs a sun bath. Thank you for your time, and I hope as you finish or go about your tax-acquired property process, you'll remember what I read about the Supreme Court decision. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. Does anybody else from the audience speak in public forum?
Good evening, Council. Jim Gamage, Spud Speedway. Here to talk about two different issues, if I may. First one, to lend my support behind Richardson Remedies and briefly tell about how Darrell has supported us at the racetrack. When we first came here, he supported us with the Brian's Ride, supported us with the lobster bake. So I just want to, I think I emailed everybody too about that support. So I just want to encourage the council to look at that and to support Richardson Remedies if you can. Second reason is the EMT coverage at the racetrack. We're looking to have the EMS service provided. We gave the spreadsheets out. I think I copied it to Councilor Bagley on showing exactly how many people come to Spud Speedway, where they go before they get to the track, and where they go when they leave the track. So we calculated that 25,000 people visited Spud Speedway last year, our events. So we showed through Placer AI where they went and exactly where they stopped prior to coming to the track and where they went when they left, leaving the track, showing the economic benefit in Caribou. And I can give you all a copy. I think Councilor Bagley has a copy of that too. And I think what we're looking for is the support from the city. One, to guarantee that we can get the coverage, because some of these events we can't host if we don't have the coverage. Two, I would really like to see the fees be waived. I know we've gone back and forth on the fee structure. If they can't be waived, maybe there's a way that there's an opportunity where there are certain bowls or certain events, the bigger ones, where you have the option where the council can waive those fees if they so choose. As you know, Spud Speedway for 2 years has really put on some big events, and we couldn't do it without the business support from the community. So we're trying to keep all the expenses down so we can continue to put those events on. We can't do it alone just through ticket sales. So if you can think about that when you make a decision on the EMT services, and think about what I said on how Richardson Remedies has helped us at Spud Speedway be able to put these on. The lobster bake's a big one. Brian's Ride is another one. We've had a burnout competition. So usually when I send a message to Darrell and I'm like, hey, listen, I got an idea. I think everybody will like it and it'll get some more people out. Usually the answer is yes, how can we make it happen? So I'd like to see that reciprocated from the council with the city of Caribou, that take that into account, that, set aside the type of business, that's for the legislature to decide, but think about what he's done for the community and how that does benefit us and how it benefits others. It's a snowball effect. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim. Anybody else from the audience speak on public forum? State your name and address.
Rona Hart, Caribou, Maine. I live over on Roosevelt. First off, I'd like to say, without Richardson's, I would have been buried a long time ago. September 7th of 23, I had been severely burned. And I can show you pictures.
Yeah, please bring your microphone down a little closer. Thank you.
I'd been in the hospital almost 2 years. When I got out, I could have picked up 22 bottles of OxyContin after my surgeries. I had skin, I've had laser, I've had skin releases. I could have become some of the people that's already here, addicts. When I had the surgeries, the only time they gave me anything was when I was coming out. I refused to pick up any of the drugs. I've been there before. I won't do it again. If it weren't for this is an RSO. It's almost like morphine. You put it under your tongue and it helps release the muscle. It calms things down. I get one every month. I also use it for my cancer and my heart problem. Without this, I don't know where I'd be. Because this is the only thing that helps. All the doctors do is push the drugs. Well, I've been there, and I won't go there again. I don't care what it costs me. If it costs me my home, then that's what he's going to do. But I will not take another drug. I'm also looking into neighborhood watch in my area because there's a lot of drugs there. We've already gotten rid of, I'm going to say about 7 of the drugs around the neighborhood. We've got 2 more we need to get out. I watch my neighborhood. That's my neighborhood. Everybody gets along. Everybody knows me. They know the problems that I've been through. And we all try to help each other. If I can't get up to Richardson's, one of the people will make a special trip for me. They're not just workers. They're not just friends. They're family. There's somebody that will open up their ear and open up their heart. And if there's something that they can say or do to help you along your process, then that's what they do. And they don't back down. When they make a promise, they keep their promise. But that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your insight. Does anybody else from the public want to speak? If anyone has any prepared statements, please make sure that Danielle gets a copy of them. I wasn't paying attention for the minutes.
It's not prepared.
All right, whatever.
Head scratching.
Okay, that was fine. I'm just-
Dave Corrigal, Caribou. You appointed me to the Economic Development Committee, and I would like to share with you and encourage you to flat fund our mill rate. If we incur any increase at all, you are technically handcuffing the development team. We cannot function in the top 20% of the highest property tax communities in the state. We're not all playing nice in the sandbox right now. There's some entities that are proposing increases in their budgets. It's not right. We're not struggling enough, in my opinion, and I would strongly hope you give serious consideration to flat funding the mill rate. The sun will rise tomorrow, even if you flat fund. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Anybody else from the audience like to speak under public forum before I close it? Close the public forum. Item 7A, acceptance of the minutes, April 28, 2025, City Council regular meeting minutes. Any errors or omissions? What are the wishes of the council?
I make a motion to accept the minutes of the April 20th, 25 regular city council meeting. We approve them as is.
I'll second it.
Any discussion on this topic? Roll call vote, Bagley,
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
Lovewell,
Aye.
Terrio,
Aye.
Watson.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Number 8A, bid opening, well, 8, bid openings, awards, and appointments. 8A, we're going to recognize Sue Willett and Dave Willett on their retirement, page 13. I believe that Councilor Terrio is going to make the presentations. Thank you, Joe.
Tonight, we recognize the retirement of David Willett and Susan Willett. David Willett has worked for 27 years with the City of Caribou in the Public Works Department. Dave started as a mechanic and is retiring as the Public Works Director. Susan Willett has worked as the FSS Coordinator in the Caribou Housing Agency Department for 12 years. Her last day was in April. We thank Mr. and Mrs. Willett for their service to the city and wish them well as they start their adventure in retirement. Dave's last day is Monday, June 2nd, and all are invited to stop by and wish him well in retirement. That would be at the Public Works Department, Monday, June 2nd. If you want to go to the garage at 904 Main Street and wish him well. And I know we wish him well here too. And we've got.
Do you want me to go down and do that?
Do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, please come up. We have. Get everybody in here.
Is everybody going to stand up in the back?
Yeah, please.
Oh, hang on.
All right.
All right.
All right.
Here, here.
Do we want to close in
Oh, yeah, we can. We can fill the gap.
behind it?
No.
Yeah, well, that was where I was going to stand. Jody, looks funny to do that. That's my favorite spot.
Just move, you three move this way just a little bit, please. And thank you. Now, when you go, yeah, so Tamara, no,
This way?
Sue,
Okay.
you're fine, Tamara, just a little bit.
No.
Joan?
Come this way a little bit, John.
Stop hiding.
We're gonna make up, let's dance.
Yeah, I don't have Joan in there.
Hello.
Thank you.
We're not moving. We're going to stay right in our spots here.
Hey, come on up. I know.
You moved.
Yeah, come on
I
up.
didn't move. Well, you kind of are in trouble because I said you couldn't retire, but you still have a few days to change your mind.
Yep.
Exactly. I like it.
Maybe if I had a flat tire.
That could be arranged.
Jump in again.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you all.
you.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Dave.
Sorry for the casual dress. It was just such a nice day out.
No.
Yes. Well, that's
Could be more casual.
Have
It's,
fun.
no, it's a perfect, it's a nice day.
I've had a good time. I will.
All right.
Thank you.
If you get lonesome, you know you can come back.
Consulting, that sort of thing. Oh, the date, well, we still got Dave going public works.
We didn't do any bids.
Oh, okay, so we're skipping that.
I already
we're
had
not-
it on the agenda before I found that out.
Oh, okay, that's fine. 8C, page 15 to 20 in our packet, we have the city office janitorial contract bid. Benny?
So we put out for janitorial bid services. We do that every 3 years. There was one bid received for 25 High Street janitorial bids for the 25 High Street janitorial bid solicitation. This is for the cleaning of all 3 floors of the municipal building. The police department is cleaned more often due to it being a 24-hour facility. The one bid came from B&P Cleaners, who currently have the contract for the work at 25 High Street. There is an increase over the 2024 contracted fees. The new fees would be for the city office, $1,100 monthly for 2025, $1,125 for 26, and $1,150 for 27. The police department, $1,200 monthly for 25, $1,225 for 26, and $1,250 for 2027. So Paul currently has somebody on his staff that does a good job for us, and they make sure that they have background checks on everyone that comes in here to the city office. We had a little issue last year, but we've got things, well, I guess it's this year, but I mean with the last contract, but this contract would go into effect July 1st.
Will these prices maintain the same schedule of cleaning?
Yep, same schedule.
Okay, thank you.
So the police station is 5 days a week, and in the city office, it's 3 days a week.
What are the wishes of the council?
I'll make a motion to approve the contract with B&P Cleaners for the janitorial services at 25 High Street and authorize city manager Penny Thompson to execute the same.
I'll second that.
A motion, a second on the floor. Discussion on this topic. Bagley?
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
Lovewell?
Aye.
Dario?
Aye.
Watson?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. 9A, we have a public hearing for the liquor license for the Jade Palace. That information is provided, pages 21 to 32 in our packet. I will open the public hearing at 6:24. Public hearing is open. Do you have anything, Penny, for us on this, or update?
Well, tonight we're having a public hearing regarding the liquor license for the Jade Palace Restaurant. The business is still under the same corporation. Since the corporation has new owners, this is a required new application to be filed with the state. And a public hearing at the municipal level is required per the city charter. Please note they did not apply for a special amusement permit. So the timeline is, on May 12th, the city clerk's office received the application from the State of Maine's Liquor Licensing Division for Jade Palace Restaurant located at 30 Skyway Drive in Caribou. On May 15th, payment was received from Jade Palace Restaurant for the liquor license application to be processed and a public hearing advertised. Once receiving the application, City Clerk Danielle Brissett forwarded the application to Code, Police, and Fire for review, and the premises were called and reminded to submit their license fees to the city. Code enforcement stated they would hope that the bathrooms at the facilities would be addressed, as that would be their concern. The police department stated they are good with the renewal of the license. The fire department stated that CFD approves. Additionally, the city clerk checked with the state on numerous occasions to see what staff could do to expedite the process. We've also learned in this process that code enforcement needs to check to make sure they had a health inspection. And I did check online over the weekend, and there has not been one done, so I can't approve that from code enforcement until that's done with the new owners. So we'll keep checking the website. So the recommended action was to open the public hearing, ask for any comments, which you have done, close the public hearing, and then move to approve the new liquor license for Jade Palace Restaurant as presented, and authorize City Manager Penny Thompson to approve the online application through the state of Maine.
Does anybody from the audience have anything they'd like to, or the council would like to bring up during the public hearing before I close it? I just would like to point out there's been some concern about this. This was not on the city side. we're doing this in the timely fashion. So, because it's a new license, it's not a
Right, a new owner for the corporation.
new owner, so then there was some paperwork there, it's not on our side, so, but we
Well,
hopefully can-
again, I gave you the time frame so you can see,
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
city staff got right on it as soon as
Yeah.
they could. We have to, per our charter, have it advertised for the 7 days. So that's why we got everything sent to the paper. It was advertised here in the office and also online so that we could get it done as soon as possible.
absolutely.
But it's my understanding from the state that they were told months ago that they needed to do this. So we do the best we can, but we can't bring the application forward, but we can act on it when we receive it.
So you're recommending approval in spite
Yeah.
of the outstanding issues with
Well, yeah,
code?
but what I'm saying is, as code enforcement, I can't go on and approve it until then, but this body needs to approve it so that once the steps are in place, that it can be approved.
Right, okay,
Yeah.
very good.
Well, I'll read the darn statement. I make motion to
Oh,
move.
we have to come out of the public hearing first.
Oh, okay.
Does anybody else have anything they want to do in the public hearing? Or speak? I will close the public hearing at 6:31. And what are the wishes of the council?
I make a motion to approve the new liquor license for Jade Palace Restaurant as presented and authorize City Manager Penny Thompson to approve the online application through the state of Maine.
I second it.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Bagley.
Aye.
Kelly.
Aye.
Lovewell.
Aye.
Terrio.
Aye.
Watson.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
I just bring up the bit about code enforcement because I know that the council's been contacted about staff dragging their feet, but we can only do things as they're made available. So if you get complaints about that code enforcement isn't signing off, there is a website and we're checking it just to make sure that that's done.
Perfect. So now when we have 10A, we have the April financial reports. We have Carl here to update us on that.
Evening, Deputy Mayor, councilors, and manager. Beginning on page 35, the narrative is on page 34. April assets on hand at the end of the month was $11,329,293.62. Cash on hand was $4,782,943.85. 3/4 way down the page, we have the 2024 tax receivable. We collected $90,368.82 in the month of April, bringing our commitment down to $590,620.31. As of the end of April, we collected 94% of our total commitment for 2024, and that's about 1.2% less than last year at the same time frame on 2023's commitment. Next line, the 2025 tax receivables, we collected $38,710.60 in prepayments. Year-to-date total, we're at $202,927.60. Moving on to the next page, at the bottom, we have the total liabilities for the end of the month, and they came in at $7,590,158.04. Moving over to page 40, we have our fund balance for the month. It came in at $3,739,135.58. Moving over to page 42, we have our expenses for the month. For the month of April, we came in at $834,332.34. Through the end of April, we spent 25.6% of our overall budget. That's down 7.7%. Moving over to page 47. We have our revenues for the month. Revenues came in at $552,294.03, and we were under budget by 15.2% for the first 4 months of the year. Excise tax came in at $177,496.83. Year-to-date, we're at $524,639.28. And that's under budget of 2.6% through the end of April. Revenue share came in at $112,727.60. Year-to-date, we're at $678,349.66. We're under budget 4.4%, about $102,000. Moving over to page 52 of your packet is the graph for the month, and it is on revenue sharing. I do have good news for May. May came in at $328,000, so we are on the right track to get back on track. And usually we do see a dip in March and April, so we're actually right in line. But for May, it's actually going to exceed the 2022, the high graph, the black. So we're going to be catching up on our revenue sharing in May. So that's all I had to present for the finances, unless anyone had any questions.
I just have a question about the prepayments, which is what, the 2025 tax receivables, that 38,000? So when I'm looking at the beginning balance, I just wanted to know, why is that changing if that's a prepayment? I'm just not following how the math works on that line. That's 200-25.
So
When it shows the beginning balance of the 53,251.
So 53,000 is what we collected before January 1st.
Okay, that was last year,
Yeah.
even though it shows it under 25. Okay, that's why I was just kind of trying to figure out why it's different. Okay.
So what happens is people pay on their 2024 taxes and pay extra. So we collect a majority of our 2024 taxes in 2024.
Gotcha.
We
Okay.
collect 53,000 before 1/1 of 2024.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out why those numbers were different
Yep.
and how they were calculating. Okay, thank
So
you.
technically, we've only collected 150,000 in 2025. But
Gotcha.
it is all, the 202 goes towards the 2025 commitment.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you just talk a little bit about the tax lien process that your department's been through in the last month here and how that was different from 2024?
Yeah,
The
so
number.
the tax lien process, we just went through our whole exercise. We actually start in March. We send everybody that hasn't paid their 2024 taxes, we send them a courtesy letter. Basically just saying a reminder that your taxes are still outstanding. In April, we send what they call a 30-day notice of lien, which means that they have 30 days before the lien actually goes on their property. And then we just sent out 342 liens on Friday, which is about 102 more than we did last year. So it's there is definitely a struggle out there. But I would like to make comments on the tax acquired portion too later on, if you allow me to.
Under 11A.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
if you want me. anything else?
Doesn't matter. If you want to talk.
Do it
I mean,
now.
you can ask the deputy mayor, but I'm fine if you want
If
to
you'd
talk
like
about
to,
it now.
if you'd like to speak about it now, I'm fine with that.
So I just want to put out there that when we waive foreclosures, we're not waiving our interests. We still have, so when foreclosure comes, we have 2 liens on the property. There's 2 years prior to foreclosure that it goes to lien. So when you waive the foreclosure, you're only waiving the current year. You still have a lien on that, so you still have interest in that property. It just extends it by a year. That being said, I just want to share a couple of numbers. When we waived foreclosure in 2023 on 2021 taxes, we're still working those accounts. So we've collected 40% of what was outstanding 17 months ago. So in 17 months, we've collected 40% of what got waived. So we're still working those accounts. We're still collecting on those accounts. So we're not giving up our rights to those properties, and people are still paying on them. Last November, just in 5 months, we've collected 24% on that outstanding balance. So by waiving them, we're not giving up our rights. I just want to make that clear for you folks. Also, I feel like the process that we should be going forward with is the process that you're going to address on Herschel Street. That's the proper way to get rid of these properties, is to go through and either have them demolished and waive the back taxes. Because let's face it, 95% of those properties that we're waiving are blight properties. So that's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you so much.
Excellent update. Thank you, Carl.
Really good.
Is there any other questions from council
I
regarding?
did have a question about both the expense and revenue a little bit.
Sorry.
Sorry about that. I should have jumped in earlier. Both the expense and the revenue accounts were a little bit low. Were you able to identify a reason or a primary reason for them being low?
We are understaffed in PD. There is a couple open positions in the fire and ambulance. And for the revenue, it always is that way until we get the tax commitment, because most of our revenue comes from tax collection. So we'll make up for it down the road when we get to taxation.
Also, we don't expense the capital until after we've sent out the tax bills either. So when you
Right.
see on there the capital
Good
account,
point.
that doesn't get expensed until all the bills go out.
And she's talking about line 85, the last line under expenses. So we have 1.4 million in capital, and there's nothing but expense of that until commitment. So that drives down the percentage.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? I'll wait until you guys.
Does anybody else have any questions for
Although
Carl?
I do need my steps, so that's okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Got 10 more.
Okay. Thank you, Carl. What are the wishes of the council?
I move that we accept the financials as presented.
Second.
Motion, a second. Discussion. Bagley.
Aye.
Kelly.
Aye.
Lovewell.
Aye.
Terrell.
Aye.
Watson.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. 10B Parks and Rec Foundation Project, Caribou Mill Pond, congressionally directed spending funded. And Shane's going to speak on that.
Me? Okay. Good evening. Thank you for having me. My name is Shane McDougal. I'm with AVS Engineering right here in Caribou. So we've been working with Gary and the Caribou Parks and Recs team. I was selected to basically engineer this project and get it through construction. Where we're at today is we've met with the planning board. We kind of got their blessing. So now we're here to the city council just to get your blessing to kind of really officially kick it off. What I'll do is I'll go through just a real quick summary of where we're at. So the overview of the project: back in 2018, 2019, the dam let loose. Gary asked me to come and take a look at it and see what I could do. We were just going to do a very quick fix to it and had a little permitting. We got into that very shortly into that, and DEP required a permit, but IF&W stepped in and said, hey, if you're going to do this project, we want a fishway. And that kind of hand grenaded the whole project, because there's a fair amount more expense in a fishway. So for the last, 3-4 years now, since 2023, Gary and I helped a little bit. They secured funding from the federal government, I believe $4.5 million, to do that project. And we said, well, we're going to do this, let's do it right. And so basically there's 3 elements to the project. There's fix the dam as it stood. We're not making it any taller. We're going to put it back to where it was. We're going to dredge the pond, and we're going to add a fishway. So those are the 3 components to the project. So that was awarded in '23. The city just went out for an RFP again, selected me to do that. For the last 3 months, we've been working on a scope, having meetings with DEP, the other environmental agencies. There's a fair amount of permitting I'll get to. Once we figured that out and understood what that scope was, we put together a scope and fee, which is in your packet. So I'll skip right into that. AVS scope of work is 5 different items: data collection, that involves a survey, it's a geotechnical investigation, and a natural resource review. B is environmental permitting. There's several permits we need. The first is, because it's HUD funded project, we need to do a NEPA review. It's a fairly in-depth process. We've elected to help with the city to do it on their behalf. HUD is very constrained with employees to do that type of work. And so it takes a lot longer. We'd be 2 years down the road, and Penny can attest to this with other projects, and I can with other projects I've been involved with in the past. We have to do a Maine DEP Natural Resource Protection Act permit. The nice thing about this permit, it's a permit by rule. The reason it's a permit by rule is IF&W currently, and that's really what we've been waiting for up till now. IF&W is going to play a leading supervisor role, and it's a enhancement project, a wildlife enhancement project. So that makes that permitting a lot less. Army Corps of Engineer needs a permit. The dredge material, that needs a beneficial use permit. Basically, dredge it out, go use it somewhere else. We need to have 2 city permits, a shoreline zoning permit and a floodplain management permit. Engineering design will entail plans and specifications. We'll put those together for the 3 elements. We have some sub-consultants to help with the fishway and do a hydrology and hydraulics, as well as do some survey. Once we get that all in package, we'll bid it out. And then I'm going to provide a lot of project management and project administration for the HUD requirements. I'll say the city hired me to project manage this. I know there was some concern about Gary's got stuff going on, Penny's got stuff going on, and they're basically, there's going to be a minimal effort, at least from my point of view, for Gary and Penny. They're going to maybe review some plans, and then just general oversight. That's kind of what we've established. So I don't see a lot of their time being taken up. I did the project at Big Rock where we helped them with the HUD project. I do a lot of FAA projects, so very familiar with those types of federal dollars and what's entailed in putting those together. So as I see it today, and this may change depending on how this goes, but the schedule is award the contract today, hopefully. That'll officially kick this off. We'll try to have our HUD NEPA review complete by July. We're hoping to have DEP and Army Corps permits by August, and then we'll start into preliminary and final design being sometime in August. And we'll, depending on when that is, we'll actually determine when we actually go to bid. September's not a good month to bid, so we may push that out, but I don't see us bidding this for a project this year, so we'll likely see construction next year. I'm cognizant of what the bidding arena is, and pricing now, it's kind of a crapshoot, so we just need to be careful of when we do that. And then hopefully award a construction contract thereafter. So, yeah, that's basically my summary,
So your fees are covered under the grant?
as far as I know.
Yeah.
Yep, and the grant's 100%.
You talked about, I mentioned this before earlier, but I'll mention again, you talked about dredging and relocating, because that was a huge thing, because that soil was not contaminated. We can just,
Correct.
we don't have to ship it to Canada or
No.
wherever it would had to go, so that was could have driven the price up by
Yep.
double.
Right, yeah, we would have had to landfill it. Yeah, we did some initial testing and it didn't show anything.
So that can just go,
Use it as construction fill.
use as construction fill. So
Yep.
that was a major component, if I remember correctly.
And we're only planning on dredging 1.5 feet or 2 feet, so we're not taking a lot of material out of there. In fact, bedrock's only about 10 feet below the surface, so it's not a deep area. And we're only raising the height of the dam, again, back to its original location. And that's only about 2 feet as well, so hopefully we'll see a pond there instead of a stream.
And that'll leave your overall water depth at what, roughly? Do you know?
3 to 4 feet.
3-4 feet?
Yeah.
So with that NEPA review, does that require a public hearing process that kind of delays that and puts it out at like a 30-day window and then
There's
another
some,
30?
there's some public participation in it. It would be, I'd say worse if HUD was actually doing that review. We're gonna do that review, so there's a lot of stuff that we can do in-house that can make that a little quicker.
All right,
Yeah.
that's good.
What, I get a question for Penn. What action do we need to take on this, or is this just informative?
No, it looks
We're
like,
awarding it?
We need to award.
you need to give me permission to sign the professional services agreement with Obvious Engineering. Trying to see if,
We have it in there?
if
I don't see it.
Gary had that in his note, but I don't see it, so.
What are the wishes of the council on this?
Whatever the proper wording is for this situation, I agree to move it
Yeah,
forward, you know. but-
Yeah, well, sorry, it wasn't in here.
Yeah, I see it, it's not in his memo. but-
To give you, we wish to give you
Right,
authorization
give me
to
permission to sign it.
sign, what are we signing exactly? The,
The agreement with Shane for him to do, for Obvious Engineering, to do the work on the mill pond for the, like, project management and engineering covered by the grant.
copy and paste.
Yeah.
I make that motion.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll second it.
Agreed.
Perfect. Perfect, as long as Danielle's good with it, really.
She's got
got it,
She's
yeah.
way faster.
Yeah.
My memorization isn't that good.
So we, any discussion on this topic?
No.
Roll call vote, Bagley,
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
Lovewell,
Aye.
Terrell,
Aye.
Watson,
Aye.
Smith, aye. Motion
So I'm going to
carries.
stop in tomorrow.
All right, thank you for your time.
Thank
Keep
you.
the
And thank
council
you for the
Thank you.
update.
Looking forward to it.
Okay, so what do we got next? We have got attending committee reports, highway protection, municipal buildings, public safety. So, committee reports, we can start with Joan, right, on the highway protection.
She's got Penny's got a nice write-up, so,
Yeah, Hannah types out minutes for me.
wow, this is nice.
It's amazing.
So I can.
Great.
Read,
Yeah.
you want me to read the whole thing?
Well, you might just want to summarize it, but this will give everyone an update on everything that you can summarize.
We held the Highway Protection Committee on, they said Saturday, May 16th, but it wasn't Saturday.
No, it was Friday.
Yeah. And call to order, there was myself, chair, there was Jody, Deputy Mayor Smith, Paul Watson, and staff David Willett were there, and Penny, the manager. And item number 2 was the work plan, and the Belanger Road Culvert Project bid solicitation is out, but I guess we didn't get any bids for that, so that will have to be on the back burner for now or whatever. Item number 3 are the streetlights, and the trailer park is mostly done. The city manager was sent an email from Tim Todd, president and owner of RL Todd, and the email states that we have not received the balance of the lights for the rural intersections. We expect any day to have them have asked for an update. The in-town lights have been installed and are energized with the exception of the following list. These need secondary power from Versant and will require the city to initiate that work order with them as the customer. And the lights so far without power are Solar Slopes, pole on Alpha, Spring Street, so, another one on Solar Slopes, and Sincock Street, and let's see. Those fixtures don't have the Versant power, but they are installed and ready to go. There was also a reminder to not forget about Steve Doody and his light and getting the connection from Versant. City Council Highway Protection number 4, brush removal. The last week the brush removal took place, there was 12 men who worked 38 hours. All the brush has been picked up in town. The plan will need to be revamped as the program is being taken advantage of, and there's a lot of dirt, leaves, and canine feces. The program was intended to pick up brush, and they picked it all up to avoid getting anything in the catch basins. There will be an ad put out that this will be the final year of brush program. Highway protection number 5 is the River Road. The line is still on the pole, even after having a few conversations between Spectrum and Consolidated to move the line. At this time, there's no ETA when that will be addressed. High Street, Bennett Drive intersection. The discussion on the dog leg that has been closed after the infrastructure failed this winter. DOT owns the island and dog leg. DOT is going to see if they are able to close it. No response yet. Fort Bridge will be closed in 2027 for 2 months or more. The committee will need to figure out police fire response during this time in the area. And I think that's going to be a big deal as far as I'm concerned. I think
It is going to be a big deal.
awful. Yeah, and City Council, on item number 8, the next meeting is to be determined. And then we adjourned, and we said goodbye to Dave. He's gone, I think.
Yep.
No, is he?
You're getting a little misty-eyed there.
That's it.
Can I ask a question? And you may or may not know the answer to this, but are we not, I'm hearing from the road crews, from DOT that's doing the work down there on Sweden Street, that the sidewalks are not being done, and I thought we had agreed to do them last year with Dave, because they're so bad.
I think DOT is supposed to be doing sidewalks. I mean, they might not get to them this year, but remember last year when we approved the South Main project for the roads, they did the roads but not the sidewalks, but they said they were coming back this year to do the sidewalks
I think
because
so, too.
Well,
it's
they're
supposed
telling
to be a
everybody
whole
that the city
system.
said that we are to have those done, and
Oh.
so that
Good
was
to
it.
know.
I know. Well, I was thinking, well, is that really the case? I think I will just check with everybody else, but my understanding was that we were having them done, so, yeah, okay.
Okay, so the sidewalks on Sweden Street.
Yeah, and they are so poor, so.
Well, yeah, I think that was a couple of years ago, we talked about redoing the sidewalks. And the time to do it is when they redo the
Correct.
paving.
Right.
Because you
Correct,
can't just go
correct.
do it because they'll fall, Dave isn't here.
Dave
to-
knows those things so well. He says it
But
so well, but,
that's the time to do it.
yeah. Well,
Correct.
that was my understanding as
Do
well.
it at the same time.
But I personally think we need to get on this bridge closure.
Yeah, I'm glad he brought
Because this is
it up.
not good.
No.
Because you'd have to go to Fort Fairfield or Prescott,
Prescott.
To come around.
fire
Yep.
department, the police, it just doesn't make
So
sense to me.
that's in 2027?
Yeah.
All right.
And that just, it's, I think they moved it back because I was told by one of the people that were working there that it was gonna be 26, but they must have taken it back. But this isn't a good thing. We gotta
No.
do something,
And
I agree.
I think I brought it up in the meeting, it's been quite a few years ago now, when they did the big one in Washburn crossing there, and every
Yep.
farm equipment, everything
Yeah,
had to go all the way to
everything.
Prescott and back around, or they
Right.
could go up,
Yeah.
I guess they could go up through, Wade
So
or
what
whatever,
are
come
they
back
doing on the
around.
bridge? Is that when, that's not when they're like spraying it underneath there, that is when
No, they're just, the problem is that, if I remember our conversation correctly, they cannot close one lane to allow you the other lane.
That was
The
what I was
whole
gonna
thing
Yeah.
needs to stop while they do this. So that, one of the concepts, if I remember us talking correctly, was that we talked about what was the possibility of doing a dry bed for emergency response to get across that part of the river. There's a couple sections where that could be accomplished. But again, that's going to be weather related.
Right.
So whatever we decide needs to be
It's not good.
We'll have to keep,
Yeah.
I'm glad that Dave brought this to us at the meeting, because I wasn't aware of it.
Well, see,
Maybe
I
you
was
were.
told, no, I was told by an employee that they were gonna close one side, do that, and then open the other side. And this, when he brought that up, I couldn't believe it, what I was hearing, because, and they said, well, maybe we can put something down below, underneath it or something like that, but.
It's almost
that doesn't
like
even-
well, no, the Army Corps engineers can do what's called a semi-permeable bridge. Having seen it in the military, I'm sure Dan has seen it once or twice. It's a training topic where they come in and it's almost a flotation bridge. It's very temporary, though it's heavily weight restricted. But you can string it in very shallow water to go from one side to the other. But again, everything is
Where are they gonna come up?
yeah.
Where are they gonna
Yeah.
go down and where are they gonna come up?
Not to mention how much rain will we have that
Yeah.
year, because that'll affect the ability to
Right.
handle traffic. So, it's well worth talking about. I mean, basically from what we talked about, or what we were told in the meeting, if I remember correctly, is that it's the uprights that need to be reconstructed, because they're the ones that have the faulty wear and
It's hit
tear.
it, yeah. But it's, and they said, well, we could build that, but not everybody's gonna be able to use it. It's just gonna be, a few-
Emergency vehicles and public
emergency.
works.
I can't imagine having a fire truck the size
I
of
don't
what
know.
we've got going across here like that.
That would require, we'd have to reach out into the fire department and start talking about how we're gonna use helping hand agreements and back coverage and,
So anyway, you've been forewarned.
It was an interesting conversation.
Yeah. Not a good one.
Anybody have any more questions for Joan, who's the chair of the Highway Protection? Okay, municipal buildings. Jennifer?
Yes.
And I'm sorry, I spaced on it. I didn't get to the meeting the other
Yeah,
day.
you didn't show up.
I didn't get the text, and then I'm like, well, was that the next day? And sorry about
Oh,
that.
it's all right. It's all right. We had it anyways. For the fire station project, we have 2 highly qualified firms that have bidded for it. And the next step is we're going to meet with those firms and have a conversation, ask them some questions, compare some numbers. So that's where we are with that.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
And the Public Safety Building Committee, Mayor Boma's not here as the chair of that, but I believe
Councilor Terrio was at the meeting.
Councilor Terrio, can you update us on that, please? Or Benny?
Let me see.
Yeah.
Okay. I Zoomed.
Yeah, you Zoomed.
I Zoomed,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
okay. And I had a hard time getting the information. It wasn't working right. It
Okay.
was just me in a little thing here,
Mhm.
and I didn't even hear some of
What Ellen had to
Alan's,
say?
yeah.
Oh, no kidding.
So I'm gonna, because I'm thinking, why don't I know much about this going on? But that's
Yeah.
what happened, so I'm gonna let you
Okay.
give it, because
So the Public Safety Building Committee has put out an RFP for the police station project with the assistance of Artifacts. The pre-bid meeting was here on May 21st, also by Zoom. The bids are due June 12th. The pre-bid meeting was well attended, so the committee hopes that several bids will be received for this project. And anyone who is interested can reach out to Artifacts for plans and the addendum.
Yeah, because that's the day we had the agenda meeting, and I come down, I was leaving,
Yes,
and
yeah.
and this room was full, so that's
Yeah.
encouraging.
And there were a lot of people on Zoom also.
There was a
General
lot.
contractors
Oh,
and
excellent.
subcontractors, yeah.
Hopefully that we can get a
Yeah.
very competitive bid.
Yeah, hope so.
If there's a lot of interest in this, and get an
So
affordable
stay
project.
tuned.
I didn't even see you. I saw just your name, and
Well, you know why? Because the camera it would stop working.
yes, it did.
And so that's
Yeah.
why I have this computer, which doesn't have Zoom on it, because Bob came and switched them this afternoon, and now I have this one
I haven't
guessing it
lost
was,
all
yeah.
of what I've got left in my mind anyway.
Yeah, no, you didn't, you weren't losing your mind. It was, every time I kept going over there, the camera was broken, but.
Yeah.
But, I'll throw in real quick, it was on the, on Secretary now, of the AWS Landfill Board. In all my time on council, I've never paid much attention to that. It's a very, very solvent, very well run,
Agreed.
financially, good staff. So just want to point that out there. 'Cause I'm kind of new to that, so we can be, that's
And it
not gonna be a
shows
problem.
good regional cooperation too. That's, you know, a
Absolutely.
partnership with Limestone, Fort Fairfield, and Presque Isle, and it really shows how regional cooperation can really be a good thing.
It could be a good thing on other, it could be a model of other things, you know.
Yeah,
I don't want to get into
it's-
that too much, but
Mark and his staff do an amazing job.
it's incredible. I had no idea. Okay, so we got the committee reports out. We have the city manager's report.
So since the last city council meeting, there have been significant updates regarding the tax bills that will be going out this summer. The county of Aroostook has passed their budget, which will result in an estimated mill increase of .333 mil. The RSU 39 has held their district budget meeting and are proposing a budget that would result in an estimated mill rate increase over 2024 of 1.409 mil. The accepted municipal budget has the potential to raise the mill rate by 2.5 mil. And I want to say the reason why this year's mill rate, the municipal budget's higher, was because we cut so much last year at the end. So every dollar that we weren't spending because we had open positions or anything, we cut training, we cut everything we could, you know, okay, gas is cheaper, you know, we use less electricity, they use less sand and salt last year. So all of that we cut before we sent the tax bills out last year. So that's coming back this year, you know, those things are back in the budget because, of course, as Mr. Hagglestein said, you know, we want to get a code officer. Last year we had a code officer for 4 months. So if we want to have a code officer for the rest of this year and all of next year, you know, that's included in this mill increase. And there really needs to be a serious discussion about what can be done to bring the tax rate down. I mean, are we going to continue to cut our municipal departments, which keep chiseling away at everything that they're doing to try to keep everything as low as possible? Are we going to fund these open positions? As Mr. Grant said, in the financials, some of the expenses are down because we have openings in the police department, the fire department, a code officer. We've had months where we were down a city clerk. Not the city clerk, but one of her assistants. There was a time in the library we had a vacancy. So all of those things, you know, those are all important to running the city. And if we're cutting these important things, I don't know what that's going to mean for how we're operating. And I think these are things that need to be discussed. You know, what services are we going to continue to fund? What positions are we going to fund? And if we are committed to keeping things at those levels, then the savings is going to have to come from somewhere. And I know that some of you on the council share my frustration that it always seems to have to come from the city, and it's not coming from other places.
No, agree. So, can we?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay,
talking.
just making sure.
Yeah,
Because
no,
I want to piggyback on that.
Mhm.
You know, I've said this before, and I know we're being recorded and we're live,
Mhm.
and I want to say it again. We're eating tuna fish on stale crackers, and there's other organizations walking through the doorway with a piece of paper demanding their lobster and steak, and I think that's wrong. And I think both as a city council and because, especially since we're being televised, I think it's time for the citizens of Caribou to stand up and demand a little more action and take back some control. You know, I think I'm not knocking against anybody who is out there working the job, but somehow we've allowed, and I'm gonna get a lot of hate mail and that'll be fine, we've allowed unions to come in and start dictating how we do business. And it's becoming apparent as we move forward that the only thing the union has in its best interest is the union. And I think that's unacceptable. I know we have to take the school budget. I will be the first to say that I'm willing to participate, as well as I hope the citizens of Caribou come up with a plan to maybe come up with a different way to fund that school system. I think that's a lot of overreach that doesn't need to happen anymore. And I'll go on record saying it, and you can be the guy that, I can be the guy that gets the hate for it. I think teachers are great. I think they do an awesome job. I've had some experiences up close and personal last year that, I can't even begin to say thank you to them. But overall, there needs to be more accountability on their part. I don't want to be the guy that has to go into someone's office and say, I'm sorry, you're not going to be working here next year because we can't afford you, when knowing full well that we're having a hard time just trying to get by this year. So thank you for that time.
I think I just will weigh in on the increases and just make it known, all of us up here are taxpayers too. None of us want to pay more money than we have to. And we're all looking to save where we can, but the municipal budget is really funding the important things that people want: safety, and they want their roads plowed. If we're not plowing your roads when there's snow, you're going to be mad. If we're not sending out police officers and fire departments and other personnel to help when there's an emergency situation, or taking care of the lights and all the other things that are essential to this community, you're going to be upset about that too. And so there's a cost to that. That's just the way that life works. We're not trying to spend any extra here. We're really trying to find ways to save money. But that being said, we cannot fix this budget on the municipal side alone. It just can't happen. And I know that our department heads have done a fantastic job over the last couple of years that I've been here, finding ways to slash fees here and there. But I don't feel good as a human being asking them to take some of these things away when it's essential. I mean, you don't want to take a bulletproof vest away from an officer. You don't want to take these essential components from the people that are out there protecting and serving us. And so I don't feel good as a person or as a counselor doing that, and I won't vote to do that. But I will do what I can to make sure that people are being accountable, and that we are too. And just for the community to know, we bear the burden just as much as everybody else. And we really don't want to have to raise taxes either. So, participation is key. I second what Councilor Watson says, and people need to show up and voice their concerns and show it at the polls and whatever else has to happen. So,
And as you heard from Mr. Grant, there's more people having a hard time to pay their taxes.
Absolutely.
This year over last year, which is one of the reasons why I asked him to speak about that they're sending out more lien notices this year than they have before. And that's because people are really struggling.
They are.
Well, it seems to be that, and I know it sounds like I'm picking on the school department, and I am in a way, but the county is just as bad. But when it gets to school budget, if it's an off year, the only people who vote is the teachers. I mean, if you look at the amount of people who show up to vote, and then if you want to do a job correlation, I mean, because most of us can recognize teachers walking in and out of the building, the majority of them are teachers. And who wouldn't? If I could go vote on my pay raise, you're darn right, I'd be the first one in line to vote on it. Nothing against the teachers. I think they're doing what they feel they need to do to get done. I think there's some more cuts that could be made there.
Question on that. What do we have? Well, I know it's coming up here on the later on. What do we have is there any state questions or anything, or is it just the school budget this year?
Just the school.
Okay.
Yep.
And to the point, because a
Yeah.
couple of years ago, it was, I don't want to go down the school board road, but yeah, a couple of years ago, there was less than a couple hundred votes. It was 150, 180 maybe,
yeah.
something like that, because there's nothing else. We don't have any city questions.
I think this
Yeah.
is, I think one of the things I'd like to see is I'd like to see us, there's some questions I'd like to ask amongst ourselves, you know, with this, and I think that maybe an executive session for this would probably be a darn good concept before we start into the hacking and whacking of what we have to hack and whack to survive.
And I'll address, because we're on camera, and I'll address the fact that you brought it up, that the unions are, just for the unions, they're starting to dictate what's happening. I don't want to go down too
No, we
much
don't,
on this
and that's the
road, but
point. We don't want to go down that road, but I think we need to have.
right
an-
here, right now. but
Yeah, I think we
you
need to.
pointed it out.
I think we need to go to executive session and take this into serious consideration and see what the pathway is for resolution of this situation. I think it's high time. And I'm gonna use bad words. I really don't feel that we need to be held hostage here. I don't want to be the person that has to look at the citizens in our community and say, I'm sorry, we did the best we could, but the intent is not there for other folks. And I think that's something that's best discussed in an executive session.
We've said that over and over again, year after year,
Mhm.
year after year after year. Go vote.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter which way you want to vote, but go vote.
Absolutely.
And they don't.
No.
And they just, I didn't know we were voting. I didn't know this, I didn't know that. So, after a while, and then they come back and they say, well, you've got to stop raising our taxes. Well,
And
go
we didn't
vote.
do it.
Go
Yeah.
vote.
What we
And I
did.
hope this year that they will go out and vote and make and if they want the school budget the way it is and you get a good turnout and you want, okay, then
Yep.
you've spoken.
We'll live with it.
But don't let 200 of the people who the
Receives
teachers,
direct
they
benefit.
get the direct benefit of this, don't let them be the ones to say whether it's going to pass or not, because we need to hear from everybody.
Well, it's the
And-
old political adage, it's not our problem until you ask for my checkbook. And we're there.
Yeah. So. but-
So my way of thinking of this, and I've shared this before, so without significant growth within the city of Caribou, taxes are going to continue to go up because costs go up.
Absolutely.
So we all accept that. So without significant growth, I feel we need to live within our means. And we can do our part. We're proposing 2.5 mil increase this year. This is on top of 2 consecutive years of enormous tax increases
Mhm.
due to the mill rate increases, continued increases in spending on our side in the school, and basically the fact that we did a revaluation which bumped everybody's valuations up. So the taxpayers have suffered over the last 2 or 3 years, and I think a 2.5 mil increase is just out of the question. I would like to see it 0 or even a reduction. I think we owe that to the taxpayers who have suffered for 2 or 3 years of huge tax increases. And whatever it takes to get there, preserve essential services, cut other departments, we have to do it because the taxes are going to continue to go up, and our ability to attract businesses and residents to Caribou is going to suffer, and it's going to be just a death spiral for us.
Mhm.
So that's my view. Shared it before, I'll share it again.
No.
I won't be voting for a budget that raises the mill 2.5. I will not vote for it.
I have heard you say that a number of times. I'm curious as to what you want to cut. which departments, which positions you don't want to
Why don't
fund.
we have a budget workshop and we can go
I think
through
we
all of
do,
that.
I mean, we do need to talk about
I've been
budget
asking for a
workshops
budget
because
workshop
you
for
have
the
been.
last 3 years on council. and
I'm not opposed to that one
There
bit.
doesn't seem to be any interest in doing that. So I have some ideas of where you could cut, but I think it's up to the manager and her staff to figure out where those cuts are coming from. We can provide the top-level guidance and priorities, as we should, but for us as a council to go through line by line through this budget, I don't want to see a return to those days, because that's a losing game.
No,
No.
no.
And that's
you
nickel
don't
and dime
want
anyway.
that.
That's not
Well,
ever
we're
gonna
not gonna
result
agree
in
with you
on that
significant
one. We've done
change.
that
So I
before.
think, general guidance to the manager.
Well,
I think is
and a
what's
couple
needed
different
here.
things. On the property reevaluation, that wasn't on us. That was a requirement that we had to do, if I'm understanding correct?
Well, if we want to be compliant with,
To be, for
with what
compliance.
main revenue says that we
Just so
have
that
to
I
stay
put that
for.
out there, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
My
we had
question
to
is,
do
was
that.
all property reevaluated though?
Yeah, I just,
Not commercial, so there was
wasn't
not
here, but-
any, there was not an increase in commercial because there
All-
wasn't market.
All private property, everyone that owns a home, every home was reevaluated. Every single one.
Now, I can't tell you that every single one was, I don't do the assessing anymore, but here's what I can tell you. So, it's the market that determines what kind of modifications that you would need to pricing schedules. So you have to look at the market, what kind of properties are selling. So you may have properties that are selling for a higher percentage over their assessment than other classes of property. So, for example, we have not seen an increase in the sale of commercial property. So therefore, when the values were changed in 2023 to reflect the market, I mean, keep that in mind, there was not a change to commercial. Now, some residential properties are going to see a higher adjustment based on what the market says those are doing. So if you have a certain segment of the population, so in assessing, when you're grading a property, it's kind of like school, A, B, C, D, okay? So, for example, what we have seen since that market adjustment was done, and even before, were properties that would be graded, and I know I'm going way in the weeds here, like a D plus 10, so a little bit better than a D grade, so passing but barely. Those properties, when they would have been looked at during the 2012 revaluation project, which the values were committed in 2012, but the project was started in 2010. So that was a house-to-house revaluation. That wasn't like a market statistical update. That was house-to-house. So during that time, that's when we would have established like the grade of the house. So what they have discovered is something that's like a D plus 10. Those were the properties people were buying and flipping.
Yep.
So you see a bigger increase in the valuation of those houses. So we have the ability through TRIO, which is our CAMA system, Computer Assisted Mass Appraisal System, to go in and apply factors to the properties based on like grade, condition, things like that. So something that would be a D plus 10, if you are seeing that those are appreciating at a higher rate than something that's like a B or C grade, you can go in and address that. So if someone, but say something that would be like an E grade, which is really rough shape and maybe not even habitable, those may not have been changed because when looking at the market, which again we have to get the information from the market, we may see those properties did not appreciate.
And also too, if I remember correctly, when we reevaluated and the values went up, the mill rate went down.
The mill rate went down, but also the exemptions went up because
Right.
we had, to stay true to state law, we have to factor exemptions, they call it. So if your certified ratio is 100%, well then you're getting 100% of the amount of the exemption allowed by the state. If your certified ratio, which the state will allow you, and again, this is way in the weeds, and if you fall asleep, I don't blame you. But you have to factor it. So if what you have for a certified ratio is over 100, you have to factor it up. So like last year, the homestead exemption was 28,000 instead of 25, which is what it is in statute. That's because our yeah, people are leaving because I know this is so in the weeds. But those are things that we have to do. We have to factor business personal property if it's determined that our certified ratio for homes is like 112, which is what we certified at last year.
We this year, so the year the mill rate went down, we say, oh, we dropped the mill. Taxes still went up. The budget didn't go
Right.
down.
I mean, what you have
That's
to
the
look at is
bottom
what
line.
you're spending. Like what?
That's right.
Yes,
Yeah.
so we can, so I can say, oh, we went down a
And
mill.
then the next
Yeah.
year, we raised our budget and we raised the mill rate. Bam, another big hit last year.
Yep.
And this year, I'm not going to do that again. The taxpayers have suffered long enough.
And then what Tamara was mentioning earlier, I mean, what do we cut and where do we do it? Because I could probably do it. I've done it before. I've talked to enough citizens over the years. You can ask 20 different people. Well, the taxes are going up. Okay, we're going to get rid of it. And then somebody's going to tell me, we don't need all these police. Let's have the sheriff do it. And then you're going to talk to someone else and say, well, we'll close the library 2 days a week. And they go, oh, no. So it's a very
Well,
a big group. You know, I mean,
Yeah, but
what
the
do
other
we choose?
thing-
You know, what do we choose here to cut? I mean, it's very,
Yep.
it's very
Well, and I'll
tough.
say again, I think that's up to the manager and her staff to do. I don't think the council should take that on.
Mhm.
We shouldn't be picking winners and losers. What we should do is provide the guidance, the top-level guidance, and have the manager and her staff work out a budget. It's her budget to come to us for approval.
Absolutely. Oh, Paul, you.
Well, I agree. I wanted to piggyback on what you were saying, and I agree with Dan, too, at the same time. What citizens fail to comprehend when they make those suggestions, let's turn it over to the sheriff's department.
Or anything like
Yeah,
that.
anything.
I'm just
Yeah, I know
not
what
trying
you're
to pick
saying.
apart my-
As
but-
well as when you start talking about, let's cut back on, fire services and stuff. There's a cause, and I'm trying to think of the word.
Effect.
Yes, thank you. Because I have a lot of things running in my brain right now and I'm trying to use proper wording since we're being on television. You change the fire department, you change your fire rating. Since you change your fire rating, your home insurance goes up.
Right.
So you're not benefiting yourself. You look good on paper while you're doing it, but everybody's taxes stay the same, but in the same respect, everybody's now paying more in fire insurance. So what you were saving in taxes, you're now spending somewhere else out of your home budget. And I hate to say this, but we're going to end up sitting here as a council, whatever budget, and we're going to keep those thoughts in our mind while we do it, and those are how we're going to make our decisions. It's not going to be, well, I don't like this organization, or this organization can take a hit. We're not going to do that. We're going to look at this, like Dan said, realistically, and it's your budget, and hopefully, guide us what it is, and we move on from there. But in the same respect, I want, or at least hope people understand that there's no one on this side of the table that's going to just willy-nilly this. We're well aware of the cause and effect of making certain decisions, and you're not going to make everybody happy. Hopefully we can get a large group happy, but we'll see what happens.
Well,
So-
we've already passed the budget at 2.5 mil increase, so what
Now,
are we
we can
going to
go
do
back
about
and
that?
cut it. We haven't locked that down totally. That was part of the deal.
We can still cut.
Yeah, we can still
But
cut.
what are we going to do that? I think that's what the manager is asking for. What are the next steps? What are the ideas?
I
What
think
guidance do we want to provide to the manager tonight?
We provided 10, excuse me, were you done? Okay. We provided 10%. You didn't get that across the board, right? What's that? What was proposed?
You're asking the departments to cut 10%?
No, we asked for it, but I don't know. We
came
asked,
in
I
at-
don't know what came back.
We asked 10, and I think the overall number was like 8 point something.
That's what I was gonna say, you're asking them to do it again?
No.
No,
Okay.
no, no, no.
I'm saying we asked it, so
we
would we come back
suspended
to
their-
eight?
Okay.
We suspended their cuts until we got the other two pieces into play. Now we have the other two pieces, so they can look at their budget and they can make cuts to compensate. That was what we voted to do when we said, oh, we're gonna take this budget. We did it with full understanding that we knew
Right.
that we didn't have these two pieces. And without those two pieces, saying, oh, we're gonna cut X amount percentage was actually useless.
Right.
So now we're here, so now we need to determine, I guess, what percentage you wanna shoot for, and then we let it roll.
Well, I think the 10% came from that dollar figure that we needed to reduce to what? Get a 0% mill rate increase?
I think on the city side,
the
but
city
you
side.
still, you
Just on the
still
city.
had, you still have an increase on the county and the school.
No, we're not
Yeah.
concerned about that. At least I'm not. I mean, that's done, that's a done deal. But
I mean,
we-
it's not done, it's not a done deal on the school.
until
It has
gets
to
voted.
vote on
Right, I
June
understand
10th.
that.
The county is a done deal.
But what we
Theirs
can
is passed.
control is the the municipal budget
Mhm.
that currently is going to be about a 2.5 mil increase. So what's the dollar figure and what's the percentage
It's $1
of
million.
that total
It's
budget?
It's $1 million.
It is, it's still $1 million,
Out
okay.
of 12 million.
So when the
Or-
council mentioned a 10% and you went to your departments to ask for input on 10% from each department, how did that go?
Well, we presented that at the
Some
March
departments did, some
17th
departments
budget.
didn't.
Yeah.
Some departments did, and some departments didn't.
My recollection is
Correct.
that none of them gave you 10%.
Yeah, there were some that did.
There were some.
Sure.
I remember the highest being 8, but most of them
No,
were down
that's- yeah.
2 or 3%.
It's not accurate.
I mean, I can bring it up because it's in the council packet, so.
Yeah.
Although this is a new computer, I can't find anything.
Well, I mean,
But yeah,
yeah. So, I mean, that's one option. That's a simple option, to try that again. Or we can take
They
some
came
other-
back, they come back, correct, here if I'm wrong. They brought those proposed cuts back to us, but we never implemented those.
Nope.
No.
Correct.
Nope.
Nope.
Correct,
We
okay, so they,
rejected those.
there
and
was
there
a
really
suggestion.
wasn't any guidance like,
Okay.
yes,
Yes, we're
cut
gonna
it
accept.
here, no, I don't want you to cut here. You know,
Okay.
there was none of that
And that's,
either.
yep, okay, so there was feedback from the departments, whether it got to the 10 or not, we just never accepted or
Right.
implemented those.
Yeah, we said we would have that conversation later.
See, I for
After we have
one
more
would-
information.
Okay.
would not like to impose 10% cuts on our essential services. You know, I'd like to exempt them. But now we're getting into more complex, you know, math here, so I don't know what the best approach is. I would like to preserve essential services, basically freeze them at 2024 actuals, and then look for whatever remaining reductions in the other departments.
I think
get
that
that.
I think that the flaw with that is that we have, let's say, for example, we have a new staff member coming on very soon, and we didn't have that person that we have hired on that's starting. Right, that was,
The
That wasn't on the
economic
actuals,
and
yeah.
community development, that is funded through TIF funds. So that's not general
so
fund.
that
That's
doesn't,
through, that's
that
through
doesn't
an enterprise
matter.
account.
And then what about the secretary position that was just filled? Those things, did those come out of the budget last year? And if
Well,
we're freezing
I had a
them,
secretary for 9 of 12 months last year, but
so then you
I
would
didn't
essentially
one
have to
for
give her a
3.
pay cut,
So the,
or
so the
lay
actuals.
her off for 3 months
Right,
or something?
So the actuals are gonna be lower in those cases where there
Right.
are established positions that weren't filled. You make-
That was my concern, though, was.
But you make exceptions for those.
Okay.
But you start with actuals. I mean, that's how you do budgeting. And that's how I've ever seen any agency do budgeting. You look at your actuals and you start there. And you make good, sensible decisions about what you want to increase and decrease from that point, and it has to be justified.
Just the terminology freezing it at 2024 made me a little concerned about that if something wasn't
No.
filled, but we still want to fill that position.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
So-
I didn't have someone in that position for about 3 months this year, so I mean, you'd be about the same.
About the
I
same.
mean, but
So essentially, we're saying we need $1 million, correct? Then I think that's the guidance for right now.
For the, on the municipal side, because I don't,
Yep.
and as you mentioned, I
I
want
think-
to stay not talking about the school, go vote,
That's on him.
choose your own.
Yep.
That's up to
choose your
everyone
own
else.
adventure with that.
With that,
But
I mean,
with
it's up to us
the-
here to just take care of this
Right,
municipal
for the
side.
municipal budget, but It is very bad for morale when we're calling
Yeah.
departments non-essential, is what
Oh,
I
for
want to
sure.
say.
No,
Like,
I-
because
I
we
agree.
have, you know, everyone has a role to play, and we definitely don't want to be on the news because we have something crazy going on in the city that is going to put us out there for a bad reason because someone's not doing their job because we're understaffed or morale is so low from being called non-essential that they don't feel like their work matters. But everyone's job matters that works here.
And you're already understaffed.
Right.
So
So I think,
I'm sorry, but I don't see.
So
what's
what I
No,
can
I
do
just-
is I will send out that cut list that the departments came, I don't have access to the P drive on this computer that I've had for 3 hours.
Just
well, I
resend
think,
it.
I think to go back to what Dan originally said, I think if our goal is $1 million, you're the city manager. You know better than we do. You know, no, and you see where I'm going with this.
Yep, I do.
And then you and the department heads sit down, come up with a plan, bring it back, and best place to finish this conversation is an executive committee.
You can't talk about budgets in executive session.
I wish we could.
Yeah, but you can't. I mean, if
No.
you're starting to talk about positions, you
Yeah.
know, that's
Individual.
different.
Yeah,
But not the budget. I mean, the budget is a process that citizens can come in and talk
No,
about
agreed.
and give their, you know, their input on what we're doing. I mean, that's,
Well, in that case, I think, from my perspective, I mean, you're the city manager, you have good department heads, they know what they're talking about, they know where they can take their lumps. I think it's up to them.
And regarding that, I think the capital committee, I mean, we made some serious
Yeah.
You did.
cuts.
You absolutely did.
We did, and
We may have,
we go back, take a bunch more there, but
No.
but you think we
Yeah,
balanced
but
it pretty good?
I mean,
You have to do capital first.
We did,
You're gonna
Yeah.
go down with a
No.
horse and buggy fighting.
yeah, absolutely, but I mean,
You
we
can't
did a
do
pretty good
that.
job of cutting that, I mean, as far as, or keeping it.
kids
The
on the,
reality is the reality, whether, I mean.
whether we like it or not.
Whether we
I mean, I
like it or
thought that
not,
about
this is
another
the
issue
reality.
today, whether,
Yeah.
you know, we have to deal with our
And
reality.
we're not the only ones dealing with it.
No, I know, it's all over the state.
Nationwide.
yep, absolutely.
Well, and this is going to continue to be a conversation every year if we don't, as a council, start getting some new funds coming this direction by
Right.
getting those properties that have been sitting back on tax rolls, by getting new businesses here that are, you know, bringing in and generating revenue. Those are things that we can do that are positive and impact the budget, but we're going to keep having this conversation. And it's really hard to attract a new business and new families if you don't have public services. So the more you cut, the harder it's going to be. So maybe just thinking a little bit more along the lines of economic development.
That evaluation, get that base up there.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's, which is been talked about for years. I mean, I wish I knew how to do it, but.
We should do it.
Or help it.
Yeah.
City manager, do we have anything else, Penny, on the city manager's report?
I think this is the most important thing we're dealing with right now, is dealing with the budget.
Absolutely,
And getting that where it needs to be before we send out tax bills to people. And I'm going to tell you, when the tax bills go out, it's our staff that, you know,
Yep.
deals with that when people come in. And I have heard people crying in the office of the deputy tax collector because they can't pay their tax bill. And that's, you know, that's hard for our staff to be dealing with. It's hard for our staff to be dealing with when people come in and are rude to staff because they think that, you know, for some reason they are personally to blame for their tax bill. But to your point, but people still want the service. And if you say, well, you know, what is it exactly that you want to cut? Like,
You're going to get a different answer?
well, or no answer.
Or
It's
no.
going to be, no, I want my stuff, I just want it to cost less. But again, we have to deal with reality, the reality of what the electricity costs, what the fuel oil costs, what the gas costs to put in our machines. We have to move the snow when it falls. We can't say, hey, look, you're causing too much overtime by giving us all the snow in 3 weeks, like happened this year. No, we deal with what we're given at the time. It's the same thing with any of our services, like, but we are just lucky that we have staff, and a lot of them have been with the city for a long time. I mean, we saw that tonight with Dave and Sue both retiring. Dave was here for 27 years, Sue was here for 12. And that's a story that you hear often here. Next meeting, we'll have employee milestones, and we have 2 that's been here for 30 years. And I mean, this is a place where people invest their time into their career, and a lot of them graduated from Caribou High School, as ones of you have too. And so they're very personally invested in this community and in serving the public. And the work that they do is important, and it's done by people. The jobs that people do here cannot be automated. They have to be done by people.
I think to that point, I mean, I don't think anybody on this council's on here to make whatever we get a year, whatever it is before taxes,
Right.
$50 a meeting or something, who knows? I think we have a very, very good council, a lot of experience here, a lot of different variances, so I think we have we come from
And very invested. You can see that in the committee reports that we have. And even, this doesn't even cover all the other meetings that we have. These are just the committees, like you were talking about liaison roles that the council has, and the agenda meetings, and just, things that come up during the week that, you take the time to email, like, hey, I've heard this, can you check that out and get back to me on that? This council is very invested in that.
I think the budget is probably the hardest part of the job, for us and for you and your staff, but it's the most important. I mean,
Right,
that
exactly.
is the core of what we do. So, I mean, I think it's good that we're discussing this, and I think some good ideas have been discussed, so I'll try to capture it in a motion. If I understand the consensus here, I move that we direct the manager to find $1 million of cuts in our 2025 budget from the original proposed.
I would say second that.
I think we need to wait until we know what the school department's
But I
actually
think so
going to
too.
do.
Really?
Yes.
I don't
Okay.
think we need
So we
to.
could do, this could be something we discuss, when is the?
The
when's 10th?
16th is the
Yes,
next
the-
meeting, so we have 2 meetings scheduled in June. So on the 16th, we will know if
What
the
is-
school budget has passed.
Right.
If the school budget has passed,
Then we have
with
no
no
choice.
cuts,
Then we have no
Th-
choice.
then, we have
We
to
go
figure
down
out
that
what,
lane,
yes,
yeah.
what kind of,
Why does our budget have anything to do with the school budget? I've heard time and time again that our budget has nothing to do with the school budget. Why
no,
are we
well,
waiting
we
on the
have to
school
pay,
budget?
we have to pay the bill when the school hands us the bill.
No, I understand
But
that.
if it gets, so, just playing devil's advocate here, which our former counselor who sat there used to say all the time, so if the school gets voted down and it goes back to the school board, and they decide they're gonna cut $500,000, well, then we can cut just $500,000, we don't have to cut $1 million.
Why? I don't agree with that at all. We have what we have, our municipal budget, and we need to be responsible in that municipal
Yeah.
budget. I would like to see a flat budget for this coming year. And so whatever the school comes up with, it doesn't matter.
Yes, it does.
Well, I know it
Well,
does
I mean,
for
it-
the overall tax rate.
We have to
but
pay
For the
our-
overall tax
For
rate,
our
right.
purposes,
But for the
and for
mill.
our budget process, we should not be considering what the school budget is doing and what the county budget is. We have no control over that.
No, we don't, but when we've got to collect what they send us for a bill.
I just find it interesting that that same argument is used on both sides of the issue, when it makes sense, not to touch the budget. They say, well, we're not going to cut our municipal budget because the school is increasing theirs. But now that we have an idea what the school is, we're saying, well, we can't cut our budget until we know what the school is doing. It doesn't make sense to
No,
me.
I'm just, when you say that it doesn't have, what would it have, I'm answering your question. Your question was, what does the school vote have to do with it?
With our municipal budget.
Right.
Nothing.
No, when we set the mill rate, correct? That's.
I mean, it'll matter
It's
when we
handed
set the
to
mill
us.
rate.
We
I
still have to
mean,
pay
The
it.
overall.
yeah,
I'm
the
not-
overall mill rate.
I'm not for asking the departments to cut until we know for sure exactly
Yeah.
what's going on.
Well, Okay.
Well, that's fair. Well, let's vote the motion and.
We have a
We can-
have a
Have a
motion,
motion
a
on the
second.
floor, yeah.
Any more did you second that motion?
I said if we continued, it does not have a second as of yet.
Okay, so we have a motion. What was your motion?
In no second? I heard a second.
Well, okay, if you heard a second, I'll go with the second, because I'm.
You can't withdraw your second after it's made.
No,
Let's just vote it
that's
through
true.
and we'll look at it next time.
Any further discussion? The motion was to have,
To direct the manager to find $1 million cuts in the municipal budget in 2025 from what was proposed
from what was proposed.
and accepted by us.
Further discussion on this?
I do have another question. Do we have any idea when we got the cuts, do you have any kind of rough figure when all the cuts came into you, how much was that total?
I wish I could pull it up.
It was
but I
probably, what,
can't.
like
I
800,000
think
or
it was
850,
yeah,
900?
seven or eight. It wasn't a million, I can tell you
No,
that.
I
So we
think-
would still have to come up with another.
100,000.
I
And then
don't
I've
know.
got another
I
question.
mean, it's-
This 2.5 is just the municipal or the,
No,
so it'd
that's
be like
just the municipal.
4.2 or something overall?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I guess well, we're still under discussion on this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is it achievable? Absolutely. Is it realistic?
Probably not.
No.
Probably not. I mean, let's
No,
go back
we-
to my famous line, being conservative but not unreasonable. I mean, we can sit here and figure out how to cut $1 million out of that
Sure,
tonight
we can
and go,
do
hey,
But it,
I mean, is it
Is it
reasonable? But if
realistic?
we
You're
ask,
gonna have a
we're asking
mutiny.
for it, are we gonna get it back? We asked for the 10%. We
Well,
passed this
first comes
budget,
first,
so.
you know.
And I mean, how much are you going to ask our current staff to do? Because that's what's going to happen, is that we're not going to fill positions. We're going to
Well, I
cut
just-
back on, other things that help our staff do their jobs. So,
And that's
and I see you're laughing, Counselor Bagley. I mean, maybe you don't agree with what I'm saying, but that's the reality,
That
is
is.
that, again, it's people that do the work. So, are we going to lay people off? Are we just not going to fill positions? I mean, that, most of our budget is salaries and
Labor.
benefits.
It's labor.
So that's where your bigger savings is going to come, is from that, We have a capital program so that we can buy machinery and equipment, and we don't want to cut from our capital. We have a duty to the citizens of Caribou. It's their machinery, it's their equipment, it's their buildings. We have to make sure that we are good stewards of those buildings, that we're investing in the improvements that they need, that we're setting up reserve accounts so that we have the money to buy equipment when it's available. And the city has to stand. Like, we have to make sure that the city's been here for, we had a sesquicentennial. So, yeah.
1859.
Exactly.
Right over there.
We need to make,
That's
yeah, we need to make sure that it's
93.
that it's sustainable and that we're making good choices. And but again, at the end of the day, like, it's our people that's doing the work.
Yeah, our labor is obviously, it used to be like 60, it used to be like 2/3, and I think we're over that now. We must be up to 75% of our budget is labor.
I don't know what the
Yeah, but I
exact
mean,
number
let's say
is,
it's gone up with
and
with
whether you're
raises
looking at
and-
the total budget or without the capital or
Yeah.
whatever. But
It's
Yeah.
it's moved up there out of approximately, let's 73 or 4 employees, including some part-time, somewhere in that number.
So we have the majority of that $1 million already figured out. Should we need to make some cuts, and if we want to look at a couple more things before we do our final pass, we can do that, correct?
Yes.
I don't know that we need to, I mean, personally, my
well, we're
thinking
having a
is to-
department head meeting this week. So
Yeah.
we'll be talking about it, I'm sure, at that.
There you go.
So we have,
So you have a motion.
We have a motion, a second, further discussion.
No,
On
let's
this.
do a vote.
Okay, I just want to make sure everybody, Bagley,
Yay.
Kelly,
Aye.
No,
Lovewell,
no.
Terrio,
No.
Watson.
No.
Aye. Motion fails. It was 4-2, right?
4-2.
Yep.
So what guidance are we going to provide the manager?
I think they're gonna have a meeting. I think they can discuss it amongst themselves. I think they're very qualified and very
Right.
capable of coming up with numbers. And if we end up at this conversation where we're gonna end up in another couple weeks, they will have the information to provide us and we can make a good decision at that time. I don't think that I wholeheartedly agree with your concept, Dan. But I agree with Penny's concept that there's, to say someone's not essential is the same as saying you might as well stay home because we really don't give a poop about what you do. And I find that so hard to swallow, knowing that there's people who come here on a daily basis to do a job that most people walk past, that if they weren't here, wouldn't get done. And everybody else suffers and affects. So that's a difference of opinion, Dan. I still respect you and stuff, but I just starting to go passionate on this, and that's not a good place for me because stuff happens. But I don't think it's our job to micromanage the city manager and her department heads. I think that they are some of the most qualified people that we have the ability to have, and I think they know their system better than us. So I feel very confident in handing it over to the city manager and working with whatever you have, and I look forward to seeing it.
Thanks.
I think you had mentioned you were gonna send us out
Yep,
so
I have-
the
I made a
initial
note. Yeah,
ones
I
we
made a
had
note to
before
do
that we
that.
didn't accept for the cuts. Okay, so
Yep.
if we get those before the next, any time before the next meeting, no rush, be fine with me. Okay, so city manager's report. We're on 11, unfinished business. 11A, tax acquired property process update. And that is going to be on 87 in our packet. 87 to 109. So this was talked about at the last meeting. This is kind of an update here. This is one of my personal, well, not personal, but one of my pet peeves, so to speak, on here is what we're going to do or how we're going to handle this. I mean, there's a lot of questions. I know some of these are blighted property we spoke about, and I'll speak here for a second. I know there's a process to go through. We need to figure out what we're going to do before November on this situation, whether it's right or wrong, whether we hire the state's dictating this stuff to us, it's handed to us once again. I mean, there's arguments that this is blighted property, and a lot of these you've mentioned, this wasn't Penny because you've been in the real estate business, this isn't lucrative, you know, a lot of these are places blighted, need to be torn down, or it's a lawn, but I don't think we should continue to pile these up. With what Carl is saying, fortunately my time here, we typically only, if I remember right, 15 or 20 properties a year we take or something, or, and now he's brought us this number of saying that they're sending out lien notices to,
342.
how many?
342.
342. I don't know if that'll get to that final process, you know, because people come in the last minute and pay. So that is an increase, you know, so going back to the budget, so I don't know exactly how, we got to come up with some sort of policy here in line with the state, and it doesn't look like from.
So there is an error in the agenda. What I have attached is a sample from the city of Augusta.
Yeah.
And what they sent out for, to get bids for real estate services, because that's part of the new guidance from the state, is that we have to start listing tax acquired property with a real estate agent.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like, we kind of held this off last year when we waived the foreclosures, because we were waiting to see what the state was going to do.
Right,
because it was
right.
kind of up in the air, and it
Right.
doesn't, and it currently
Yeah.
doesn't, it doesn't look like,
Right.
it doesn't look like that's going to change.
Right.
Because I think we made, I don't know, we made the right action, I guess, my opinion, but.
The
we said, well,
attorneys that come and speak at all of our trainings say waive the foreclosures.
They do.
Because it's easier to, but just like Mr. Grant says, it's easier for them to just work them and try to get the payments than to be in this kind of, you know,
This is
limbo situation where the city has an ownership interest in the property.
Now, that doesn't necessarily pertain to the properties that we can get a deed in lieu, correct? So if we can get the owners to
Yeah.
agree to that,
Then
we can get
then-
it back on tax rolls.
Yep, that's right, and you don't have to go through this selling it through a broker. You can do with it what you want. If you want to clean it up, get it ready for development, and sell it and then try to recoup some of those costs, you could do that. If you could
Particularly
make a
important
profit,
when
you
you're
could do
talking
it.
commercial properties. I mean,
Yep.
when you're talking about these commercial properties that are sitting down there vacant, you know, falling apart, being broken into and vandalized, get those back into the city control.
Yeah.
Fix them up, get them on tax rolls, get businesses generated. It's a no-brainer to me. So,
This is very, Joe knows that in the past, at one point, we had over 100
Oh my,
properties.
well, it
Oh,
was
or
180 something.
108
They
properties,
were
and we
just
spent a
sitting
few
around
years
doing- yeah.
to get these
Yeah.
off our books.
And
I
they were
drove-
just, people were living in them and they were, you know, not paying their taxes. Didn't you reach out to one or two maybe realtors and they aren't interested so much?
Well,
in-
they're not really that interested. I mean, these aren't, like, when I gave
They're
them
not
some of the
profitable,
addresses, they're like, you know,
There has to be, well,
they're not high dollar properties,
No.
you know, that we have for sale.
we spent a few years,
Oh my
get-
gosh, yeah.
several years, just to get that down to
Oh, yeah.
get rid of, we changed things.
It blew my mind how many, I stumbled on it by accident.
Yeah, and we realized, and I don't want us to get into that situation again where we
No,
can
I
have
don't either.
a couple hundred properties, regardless of what they are, and there has to be somebody out there, or I say somebody, a realtor that's interested in doing some
I
of
mean, they'll
this.
do something for a commission. I mean, we have, they can charge us a commission, and before you ask, city staff is not allowed to be the real estate agent
Yep.
for the properties. Like, it has to be an outside firm. And we have to make a concerted effort to get market value. So when we have people that come in and they offer $100 a piece, that's not acceptable, because that's, you know, I mean, you might say that is market value, but, you know, we have to try to,
We had a list at the last meeting or a couple of meetings ago, I remember now, that some company came in and was gonna give
yes,
us all
that's
this.
right, that was at the last meeting.
And we ran into this before. This was some out of state. They just wanted to give us all $100, and guess what? 3 years later, they're all back.
That's right.
They're back in our
3
lap.
years later, they're
and
all
they-
back
and they-
on the rolls.
You know, they rent them out, slumlord, so to speak. I don't know, whatever
Yep.
you want to call it, but, so we end up with them
We
back in
got 'em
our
back.
pocket.
Start all over again. Yeah.
So there's that. Yeah, it looked good that somebody was gonna take 15 properties off our list. But if you look at who the investor was or whoever was doing it was not. Yeah, and I don't know what the total number was.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
It,
It
I
was
guess it really
few.
doesn't matter. I don't know.
Can I ask the council, is there any interest in revisiting the concept of developing a land bank
100%.
within Caribou?
Yes.
Yep.
I'd worked up a proposal back a
It was,
year or
it
two
was a
ago,
very good proposal.
Yes. it
And
was.
there didn't seem to be much interest back
No.
then, but maybe we can, because, I mean, I think I see an opportunity here. If we waive foreclosures, get deed-transfer agreements, we can manage those in a land bank. As long as we can be selective about which ones.
That's the thing, we're being selective.
Is
being
the,
able to
is the
choose.
state going to mandate that we have a policy that applies to all properties? Or can we maintain the flexibility to say, I like this one, I like this, let's make offers on these, and not on some others?
So guess what? We had a new employee start today for Community and Economic Development, and this is
Yay.
on his list to look into.
Okay.
So I asked him
He's so
today,
good.
like, you
Oh,
know,
you
do you
were on
have
the- you were
anything
the hiring
about
committee with
land banks? And so we got to talking about like the state program and
This-
things, so it's on the list.
We've talked about the land bank several times.
Yeah.
Wait, and even-
That'd be a way
even
to go.
before.
Well, it's in our chapter 19, it's just there's no program or
Right.
defined there, it just mentions a land bank.
And we
so-
tried to do some folks using it.
And Penny's familiar with
Yeah.
Van Buren and what he's doing up there, which is amazing.
Yeah,
From what
I think
know.
it's a great
Yeah.
idea.
We tried a partnership with Big at one point, and that didn't materialize that well on a couple of properties.
No, it needs to be managed.
We tried
yeah.
it, but it didn't work the way we thought it was going to. So land bank, maybe that's the way to answer or help this. I'm going to continue to.
So is the city council interested in setting up an ad hoc committee to work on a new policy with staff? Or do you want staff just to come up with something and present it at a future meeting?
What
I would
the-
use my time for it.
I'd be glad to do, to help with that, but when you say new policy, what exactly do you mean by that?
So as I have in here our old chapter 19. which-
Rewriting 19.
Right, because
Okay.
we can't go with what we have now
Okay.
in chapter 19.
Yeah,
We have to now adopt this guidance, which I have in here.
Mhm.
We have to put things in the hands of real estate agent, which I've got a sample of that. It was also brought to my attention after the development committee meeting about an agreement that was made between the city and the CUD about water and sewer lanes. And so this was something kind of new too, and I have that in the packet. So I think this is all things that we have to look at when trying to craft a new chapter 19.
Now, might we start with the planning board for that, or?
Well, we need to have something to, I mean, we can get some people from the planning board too. I mean, our ordinances generally would go to them. This one is more of an administrative ordinance than something that actually deals with
Okay.
zoning and land use.
Okay.
I would be, is there, so we don't have to go here later.
Right, I know.
If there's, I'd be willing to, this would be similar to like the trailer park committee or something, I'd be willing to
Yeah, I
chair.
mean,
If there's two other
it's-
counselors that are willing to meet on this.
I'd do it.
It's
Yep.
only going to be a short-term
I mean,
committee.
this is short term, this isn't gonna be like
This isn't-
5 years from
yeah,
now.
no.
We can keep some of this stuff off the, we can do some research, keep it out of the meeting, come back
Yep.
with a recommendation.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I know we don't need 10 more committees, but it looks like I have.
It's an important, I think it's an important one, because
Yeah.
it's going to be an actual potential revenue generator and
Mhm.
help with some of the major issues we're facing, so I think
Okay,
it'd be
so I
good.
Well, and
guess-
you can start to establish policies for dealing with this. Like, are we going to try to pursue getting a deed in lieu of foreclosure on some of these,
Because
which
then we're
makes it
gonna
a lot
discuss
cleaner?
that.
And it would get properties into your land bank faster to deal with it that way.
Do we need, do we need a motion, or can we just, how do we want to
Well,
do
if
this?
you're going to form an ad hoc committee, you should have a motion and a second and discussion and a vote.
I move that we form an ad hoc committee for Chapter 19 rewrite.
A second.
Discussion, Bagley,
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
Lovewell,
Aye.
Terrio,
Aye.
Watson.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
so who is going to be on the committee?
So,
This side of the table.
So we
I'll chair the
have,
committee.
Is that fine with everybody down on the left?
That's
Sure.
fine.
All three of us, okay, yeah, we're gonna
That's
split, we're
fine.
just
We're
gonna
just
draw
voting
a
for
line
it.
right
Yeah,
here.
I'm
yeah,
sure that
chainsaw,
it's
just
anything
do it.
to avoid hearing Penny talk about assessing or
That's
taxes or anything
I'll,
with that.
well, do we need to vote on, well,
Yep.
They
we got
volunteered,
them.
no objection on
Yeah,
this side,
no one
so
has
go
any
for broke.
objection. They just have to approve committees, like the council
don't even get
approves
that
the committees if you want to,
yeah,
you know.
okay, then we'll get together and figure out, you know.
Try to
whatever.
pull in some planning board,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
because I know
That's a
they're
good idea.
interested.
Very much.
Yeah, we can talk, and then, like I say, we'll keep a lot
Maybe
of,
even some
lot of
community,
this work off the. keep it
maybe
out
even
of-
some
out of this
community
meeting.
development people.
Yeah.
And the development
Yeah.
committee too.
Yeah.
Property tax abatement request, 110 to 113 on your packet. Let me see what we got here. Swift through some of the rest of the stuff here pretty quickly.
So this was something else from the last meeting that was unfinished business. Mr. Walker has stayed here for 2 hours.
Yeah.
So Mr. Walker attended the April 28th City Council meeting to ask about an abatement of property tax on a property located at 465 Main Street. It was requested that this be an agenda item for the City Council. At the April meeting, an executive session was requested, but this is an abatement request based on valuation and not for the inability to contribute to the public charges. So this one needs to be in public, not in
Okay.
executive session, which I explained to Mr. Walker when I talked to him on the phone. Since the April City Council meeting, the Board of Assessors met an abatement of $28,900 of value, resulting in an abatement of $618.46 in property tax was approved by the Board of Assessors and given to the Finance Director for processing. Per state statute, the Board of Assessors may only approve an abatement for the current year. Mr. Walker is requesting that the city council exercise their ability to approve an abatement for the years that statute would allow them to process. This would be for the years of 2023 and 2022. Mr. Walker has not submitted a written application for an abatement. The tax rate for 23 was 19.5, and the tax rate for 22 was 23.55. If the city council wishes to abate the same amount of value, $28,900, as the Board of Assessors abatement, the math would look like this. For 2022, $28,900 at 23.55 mill rate is $680.60. 2023, $28,900 of value at 19.5 mill rate is $563.55. Mr. Walker is in attendance to answer your questions. And if you agree that Mr. Walker has proven that an abatement is due him for those tax years, a motion can be made. Second, discussion and vote.
I'm not clear why we're hearing this and not the Board of Appeals. Can you remind me again why
Yeah,
that
it
is?
has to do with state statute. So with state statute, the assessors can only abate 1 year, which is the current year we're in right now, which is 2024.
Okay.
Okay? But the council can do 2 more years if they feel that an abatement is due on valuation. This is not inability to pay. This is valuation, and that's just how statute is written, and that's the maximum number of years that the council can go back is 2. The Board of Assessors can only do 1, and they have done that.
Do we have any information on the justification for the value?
I mean, Mr. Walker is here if you want to talk to him.
But we don't have
you
an
know.
application from him, so
That's
I
a
don't.
different kind of abatement, right? The application was for the other abatement, or he needs?
Well, no, I mean, so the Board of Assessors can abate value with an application. If they receive an application, they have to make a decision within 60 days. Or they could abate something on their own volition, which means a written application was not received, but they received information that would cause them to make the abatement, which was the case here, which was Joe Sally, who is our contract assessor, visited the property after April 1st. So all values are set as of April 1st. But of course, you can't get to every single property on April 1st. When he visited the property, which was after April 1st, 2024, and I don't know what the condition was April 1, 2022 or April 1, 2023. Mr. Walker can speak to that. But Mr. Sally determined that the condition of the property April 1, 2024, although we had committed the value at $28,900 higher, he was due an abatement because of what he saw when he visited the property after the values were committed for the year.
So Joe initiated the abatement request.
Well, Mr. Walker called Joe to take a look at the property, and then Joe took it to the Board of Assessors.
And had you been asking previously, you had been asking
I've been
since
asking
2020 or
since
2021?
Could you
Yeah, that's what I
go, please?
remembered too.
Yeah, just.
Quite a few
answer
years,
the
yeah.
questions.
That was my
This is something
understanding.
I asked Joe about starting back in 2021. And I started talking to, I think it's Tony and Penny shortly after that, but finally I got to talk to the man on the phone. He said he was running behind, but we did meet up there, what was it, 24?
Yeah, I've been in
I thought it
24.
was in 23 that we met. And in my conversation with him, he said, it's definitely going to be on it definitely needs an abatement. But my understanding was, talking to council, that from the time the abatement, the assessment would change with abatement, that I could go by state law, we go 3 years prior to the abatement. Am I mistaken about that?
Well, I think it's 3 years total, so 24, 23, 22, and you've already received 24 from the Board of Assessors.
Yeah, all right. But anyway, what was your question?
That was my question. I was trying to remember if it was 2020 or 2021, because I remember you coming in before. So it had been quite a while that you had been trying to get an abatement and have
Yeah.
somebody come out and
Yeah.
look at the value. Yep.
I guess I'll ask, do you agree with these numbers of 28.9?
I think it should be lower than what it came
I
out.
figured. Yeah, okay.
When I bought that property from the Business Investment Group, John Swanberg was the contact man. And we went back and forth on that for a while, and I said, to be honest with you, I mean, the land and building, 25 grand, 5 grand for the contents. And he says, so you're offering 30 grand? I said, well, no, not yet. But that's what I paid. I paid the 30. And he's, you know, it's not worth a dime more than that.
Would you be satisfied with these terms?
Yeah, I'd be.
This would close the case?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I did want to mention one other thing. I haven't used a drop of water or any sewer since I've been there. Do I address the council here on that? No?
That's the Caribou Utilities District.
Okay, because they told me it was a city council matter.
Well, no, I mean, it definitely is not, so.
It's not?
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, maybe it's their board of trustees, maybe that's what they meant, like,
I
but,
might have misunderstood.
yeah.
Yeah. All right, very good. Any other questions?
Questions from,
Yeah, I just would like to, was it in that condition when you
Exactly,
bought it?
exactly.
Okay, so why did you buy it?
Oh, we thought we probably would do something with it for a restaurant, but the building's really too bad. We got a couple of different plans for it now.
Because I would think just the land might be worth that with, you know, I was curious as to.
There's 4 pieces of property on that corner.
It's the little bit of home, am
Yeah,
I thinking? Okay, yeah.
The front right, next to the old restaurant, is owned by the Jandro family.
Yeah.
There's 3 children left in that family. And then I bought the property behind them where the Bushard family had a house burn.
Right.
There's still a garage there.
Right.
And so that restaurant sits on that property and a vacant one behind it, and then I have the one on the corner. You know, it's a nice corner,
Yeah.
but the building's not much to speak of.
I was curious as to why you bought it in the first place and,
Yeah,
you know, wanted to,
yeah.
you know, because you knew what the taxes would be.
Well, we talked about doing an abatement right off, and when I first called, there wasn't any tax owed because BIG doesn't pay property tax.
Oh, okay.
He said,
okay.
you want to be right on that? And I said,
Okay.
yeah. That was my first phone call. No tax due.
does council have any other questions for
No,
Scott?
I don't.
Okay, what are the wishes of council on this agenda item?
I move that we approve the abatement for Scott Walker's property at 465 Main Street of $563.55 for 2023 and $680.60 for 2022.
I second that.
Yep.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion, further discussion on this? Bagley,
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
Lovewell,
Aye.
Terrell,
Aye.
Watson.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, 11C, we can run through some of these quicker here, getting late. 11C, we have the medical cannabis caregiver retail update from 110 to 113 in our packet. This is we have a very split council on this. Jennifer Belcher is here, representing the Cannabis Union, to answer any questions. Mr. Drell is here too, as well. What do we have here?
So at the last city council meeting, members of the Caribou City Council heard from citizens about changes in the medical cannabis laws that are having a negative effect on the business operations of registered caregivers operating under state statute. The Cannabis Union is encouraging the city to complete the main cannabis program caregiver retail store local authorization form by selecting yes for question 3 under section 3, which would be stating that the caregiver retail store operating under municipal approval in the municipality prior to December 13th, it's supposed to be 2018, not 2028, However, this is not a true statement. Although businesses were operating as registered caregivers prior to December 13th, 2018, there was no location that was given municipal approval for a caregiver retail store prior to December 13th, 2018. Further, the City of Caribou has not passed an ordinance to allow caregiver retail stores. I am enclosing the OCP guidance from August 9th, 2024, a May 2025 update from MMA, and a letter from Rick Salmon. There would be a lot that would need to be done to allow a caregiver retail store to legally operate in Caribou. If the Caribou City Council wants the Caribou Planning Board to take up this matter at their June meeting and work to bring something forward as a possible amendment, please indicate that to staff.
Okay, I don't know if that, oh, Peg started on this, and I know this is we have a very split council on this, but the way I'm seeing this right now is we have two businesses that are not able to operate in Caribou because of a regulation that we haven't addressed. I would be comfortable with addressing a temporary ordinance, a temporary allow them to operate pending until this council can come back with a full resolution. And I believe that Jennifer has drafted some stuff for us. Would you like to speak for a moment on this, please? And the council jump in here at any time. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you. My name is Jennifer Belcher. I own Belcher Krause and Associates. I'm also the president of the Maine Cannabis Union, but I'm here as a representative for Belcher and Krause. This is my specialty, is ordinances. I've done a lot of them, and so I have here, and I believe an email, a number of different ordinances that we've helped craft. And for example, there's a lot of towns in Maine that don't have the right verbiage. OCP, Office of Cannabis Policy, our regulators at the state, they're working a lot with the regulators to address different language. Recently, they changed definitions from marijuana to cannabis to try to help with the stigma. So that was one example. So now they expect that every town is going to change their ordinances from the word marijuana to cannabis. Again, this isn't a big deal. What really happened, and in your packet on page 121, it starts on 119, there it goes down to 121. The legislator, OCP, can send out guidance policies, which has become a contentious issue across the board. Not to get into it's a very messy, slippery slope here. And so when they did this, they deleted office space and put in a caregiver retail storefront. The office spaces weren't regulated by the towns until recently. And so when this happened, in August of 2024, this started to be implemented or interpreted and enforced in a hopes to shut down a lot of cannabis stores. The state currently would prefer to see recreational in place instead of medical. They apparently find more value in that. So in doing so Durrell has been working as a caregiver retail store since, I believe it was around 2010. And we have documentation from, I believe, 2013, if I look it up correctly. And basically, the grandfathering clause that's in that page 121, there's a grandfathering clause in there he would fall under. And this is that most of the towns didn't have an ordinance in place, they wouldn't. And so he would be considered grandfather. Anybody who is a caregiver after 2018 is not grandfathered anymore. So it might not be written town approval, hence the documentation about business licenses and things like that. It's about knowing that they were here, they've been operating, they've been doing this, and now they're considered grandfathered. And if that's the case and the wishes of the council, or however you folks decide to do that, on the form, which is down further, this retail authorization form, is the check box at the bottom, and it says, was the caregiver retail store operating with municipal approval in the municipality prior to December 13th, 2018? And yes, both shops were. The other shop would be Safer Alternatives. And So yes, both those shops were
Can I stop
operating.
you right there?
Yes.
Where did you get that information that the municipality approved those two shops?
Well, it's not about the municipality. The state had them approved as caregivers, and then in
But the
20.
language says operating under municipal approval, which
It's-
we never gave.
So it's
So why are
knowing
you
it
claiming
and
that?
things like that, and having the different. There's been different items that have been brought up, but on that note, if that's a problem, we've also looked into the ordinance and can do the paperwork for dispensary also to help with that language based on how your ordinance is written. So there's different ways to move around here to continue having a business that's been in operation for over a decade to continue staying in operation and paying and giving back to the town.
Well, you're suggesting that we check that box, yes, and as the manager pointed out, that's not a true statement.
So,
So where
and
do
I'm
we
sure
go
we
from
can
here?
have, so what that receipt is.
Yeah, what was it? I think 2016, Penny and Tony came to my store. They seen a placemat and Jade saying that I had a store, the hours and everything on there. And I was paying business taxes on like my register, my shelves, everything there. It clearly said I'm a store, but if I didn't get approved, then how come y'all were able to tax my business things? You kind of get what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I figured back then I was approved because the city knew I was here. They were taxing all my business items, my registers and everything, so that's where I'm confused of how wasn't I approved if y'all guys were taxing me on my business.
Has that continued since then? Those taxes have been every
Yeah,
year?
the property tax is on any business.
Is it
every
property
time.
tax or is it?
I'm thinking,
It's
yeah.
business.
It's the business.
Fire sale.
Right,
Yeah.
the registers, the
Fire
case,
sale.
like, a lot of towns.
So you interpret that as implied,
Rest.
implied consent or implied
Yeah.
approval.
Since y'all was taking my money and just knew I was here, that's why.
I've been struggling with that question, we all have, so.
Yeah.
And it's
okay.
been a question of contention since all of this came about. It's not just you, trust me, every town is struggling with this. And actually, we put into legislation this year, they're bringing back office space definition. And they're revising these definitions again to move forward. Of course, that's passed through the House and the Senate as well. But there is, we have put in statute, and we're looking to put in law right now about fixing this issue because there's just been so much issue around it. But like I said, right now in definition, it talks about dispensaries in your ordinance, and that may be the simplest change to keep two businesses going, is just having him go through the dispensary language. So I guess that was really up to you
And
folks.
we wouldn't have anything to do with that.
Well, to get this, right, he would apply for the dispensary, you would still need to have the approval done and everything
Or
else.
they
but-
could both go retail,
Or the retail.
except we don't allow it here.
Right, you would have to have that verbiage in your ordinance as well. So, and
So
then with
that
the
would be
dispensary, I
That's
believe
not-
there would have to be some rezoning. But with the
No, we don't wanna do
rezoning
that.
would be an increase, would be a change in property taxes as well. So, whichever way it's looked at in that verbiage, I guess, because right now in ordinance, your ordinance has the word nonprofit, which used to be a thing until they changed from the 6 dispensaries allowed in the state of Maine and opened it up to any dispensary, and now nonprofit is not allowed in association with cannabis unless you're a big corporation, and kind of branch down through that to, and then you can have a nonprofit.
So what happens if he just is grandfathered in under what's been happening?
You-
We just don't have to do anything and it just?
You check the box and that's it. Which is what a lot of towns choose to
So,
do if they
I'm
have
just gonna,
nobody.
I'm just gonna go on record to say, I do not want, you're a business, you've been here, you're solid. I don't want retail locations, I don't want to expand locations, I don't want new locations coming in, that's my personal belief. I understand that you're medical, we have another medical facility, and I don't want to see businesses go out of business. So I'm on both pronged, but just because I'm for business doesn't mean I want 10 more dispensaries or 10 more medical caregivers here either.
You won't.
So
that
my
would be a
point
thing.
is, whatever I'm going to sign on to is not going to ever expand
Correct.
what we already have happening here. And I don't know how that needs to look, but that's just my personal belief on this. But
Both
I know
of-
that you do a lot of good things for the community, and I know that you've been in business a long time, so I have no interest in having you not be in business, so.
So this current ordinance, that ordinance potentially, if we were to accept it tonight, that's
Yeah,
pretty
I
much
mean-
where we're at. That would allow them to start to continue to operate.
If you chose to
Without-
check the box, they could just continue on, nothing changes, nothing's any different except you're signing a form.
But I want to, make
really-
sure that it's consistent, compliant with the law.
Of course.
And
Absolutely.
I'm looking at this is nice, on the statutory guidance for municipalities on the back page there.
On the back of one
The
page, what
first
page are we looking
criteria
at?
is whether,
Oh,
of the
gotcha.
form.
Okay.
116. Unless a municipal legislative body has voted to adopt or amend an ordinance or warrant article allowing the operation of a registered caregiver retail store within that municipality, which has not happened.
Correct.
All right. Or, unless that registered caregiver retail store has been continuously operating as a registered caregiver retail store by the same caregiver within that municipality since before
Yeah.
December 13,
There it is, right there.
2018.
Yes.
Yep.
It's right there.
Yes.
Okay.
And which he has. And we did consult a lawyer about this as well, to talk about that as well, just to read through a lot of double speak happening in the language.
So I would like to speak to this. So, indeed, he's been taxed. Mr. Richardson, we went to visit him, just like you said, to pick up his business personal property. So years ago, the Office of Cannabis Policy, which was not called that at that time, but they would not release lists of who were registered caregivers within the city. So we didn't know who were caregivers, but as Mr. Richardson said, happened to see it on a placemat. Well, as far as I'm concerned, if it's on a placemat, you're advertising yourself as a person who is operating something that we can tax. And our job in the assessor's office is to pick up any taxable business personal property. And so we do that, and we do it to the best of our ability. However, not everything we pick up is retail. I mean, we pick up all kinds of things that are not retail oriented. So the same as a dentist's office, we go in there and pick up their personal property. They have cash registers, because you have to pay your copay when you go there, or pay for the treatment that you have. And as a registered caregiver, Mr. Richardson is allowed to have office space to meet with his patients. He's allowed to sell them product as a caregiver, but that doesn't mean that he has permission to operate a retail store. So in fact,
For marijuana, to sell marijuana.
for cannabis, he has a retail, he got permission from
From
the
glass,
planning board
yeah.
for a retail store for non-cannabis related items, which he has, okay? So he has that.
Mhm.
Now, business personal property, again, this is in the weeds, but we have, so non-retail businesses can apply for and receive the business equipment tax exemption, which is not available to retail businesses. So everything that Mr. Richardson has is eligible for business equipment tax exemption, because we see him as a person who's providing a service, caring for others as a medical caregiver of his patients.
Not retail.
Not retail, because if it was retail, we could not approve his business equipment tax exemption application for his personal property.
Yeah.
So we have always thought of it as something like a doctor's office, like a dentist's office, the eye doctor. Most of our medical doctors are at the hospital now, so they're exempt. But anyone who'd have a standalone doctor's office, we treat it just the same.
Well, that's the original concept for caregivers, right?
Right.
They operate as a consultant, provide product, advice, et cetera, kind of privately by appointment. They don't put a big sign out front and have store hours and advertise and all of that, which has been going on. So,
We have to provide store hours for our license, like of when we're gonna be available to patients and stuff, so we have to always provide that. And his shop isn't changing, it's still the office space and doing exactly what you just said. It's just that office space has been deleted from the state definitions, and
gosh.
and because of that, it puts it out of compliance at the town level without grandfathering them prior to when this got adopted, or rewriting statute to allow it. It's still, even if you changed your entire ordinance to match one of the other ones I've done in Holton and other towns around the state, it would not change anything that is happening here now. There would not be any new stores. The locations wouldn't, nothing would change. Everything would stay as is, as it is. As of right now, if this doesn't change, he's closing his doors and there's no more business there at all.
Yeah, but I guess I'm convinced now that the store does not meet the criteria that's listed on the back of this. So I don't
So
think
even,
we
I
can use
mean, we
this.
can go to the planning board to see that Mr. Richardson came to the planning board to ask for permission because of this, because he knew there was a deadline, and the planning board denied that, but did give him a permit to have a retail store for non-cannabis items, but would not grant him to have a caregiver retail store before this deadline.
But did that all happen at the same time? Because
No, it was after.
Yeah.
Yeah, in 20.
I was on the planning board when we approved your
Yeah, so when I
retail
got this
store.
approved, this was before the city can
Yeah.
even say anything, so this was
Yes.
before that, you know what I mean? But
Yes.
when y'all denied me, I was still able to do it because y'all didn't have any, like, whatever to it. I could do it anyways because it was the state, not the city.
The state, and it's still the state.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
so
the state regulates caregivers. And have you thought about having your caregiver office in a building that is not where your retail store is?
That was
You
gonna be
can't
my
have an
question.
office anymore. It's illegal to have an office space now.
Yep.
You have to either do wholesale or your office space out of your home is a caregiver retail storefront by definition. This is where every bit of this issue is coming from. Because the people that were offices working out of their home, even like myself, now has to get in order to renew the license and continue doing it as we've done business for the past 15 years, we have to get this form signed. And without, my town went in and said, oh, well, you were here before 2018, you're all set, like, it's fine. And now, and then we've worked on, because of me, I've worked on changing the ordinance to be compliant and have that addressed, but nothing changed in my town when the ordinance changed. My store stayed the same, we didn't get bigger, we didn't add 6 more stores. There is no more stores allowed. It is what it is, it stays as it is, and that is that. This would be the same way if we were to change ordinance here, but the issue is that, I've obviously been sitting here and I've heard of huge issues about businesses in town and keeping stuff. This becomes an issue, and a legal issue at that, because now the town is making it so he can't, knowing that he was here the whole time and paying taxes on the business, it becomes an issue.
Well, the
So-
managers addressed the taxes, and we technically didn't know. That was only recent that they started telling us who the caregivers are around within the city.
Yeah, that was last year that
Right,
got
and,
released.
From our perspective, it's the state that keeps switching up these rules, and I think the issue is with the state and not the municipality. He are asking us to sign up to a statement that he was operating as a retail operation.
As
under
the office
under the
space,
approval
caregiver, retail storefront.
of the municipality, which is not
Definition.
true. I agree with the manager's statement. That is not true. That's not
Then they should
factually.
change their forms
That's
to
not
say office
factually correct.
space.
But
Or
that definition
caregiver
doesn't
retail.
exist anymore,
Yeah.
so that's not in legal statute anymore, that particular definition.
Yeah, it's
And
a-
that's where all of this occurs, you know what I'm saying? And it just doesn't seem like that there's a lot more to be thought about with this, I think,
There
than
is.
how simple it really is being addressed, per se. There's, in other towns that have had a hard time overcoming this issue, it has created a lot of litigation for the businesses and stuff, and the towns, as well as businesses that are helping the towns and patients within those towns to be shut down. So that's really where the issue is coming to be. I would love to see Office of Cannabis Policy change this definition. Unfortunately, until we have probably a new governor, that won't change. So
Can the retail be separated out from the medical piece? Can the retail, because he has a license for retail non-cannabis products, is that correct?
for like glasses, he has
Right.
couple businesses
So
there,
can that be separated out?
It
So we're
already
talking so we're not even talking about that. then.
No, it's separate.
It's still approved and operating, and that's
Yep.
okay.
Okay,
That's all
so,
fine.
I guess the question is here, before we run out of time here, is basically, what's the council's wishes on this? We can belabor this all night. I know we're very split on this.
Yeah, we are.
My
Are we just
question
asking
is.
for a motion to
Well, I
check the
didn't-
box?
I
Is that
didn't-
what we're
Yeah.
talking about?
We gonna do this or not? We gonna accept this policy pending another ordinance, and we can discuss this.
Can
all
we
evening.
write something in? I mean, like,
think- I
honestly,
think
I
You
would,
would have
as
an ordinance,
proposed.
you I mean, that, there's a process in our charter for.
no, I
for
mean, can we write
ordinance.
something in on the application?
That,
No.
I doubt.
No,
No,
it's-
I mean,
it's
is that
fine.
all we have to do?
I mean, I would just
Check
say,
the box to grandfather him in. Is that all we need to do is check the box to grandfather
Yes.
him
I
in?
don't see how we can do
No.
that legally.
No.
I don't
Because-
think
that
so.
legally.
So when you talk about
It wasn't a
litigation to
retail
the towns,
store,
like who's
and so-
bringing forward this
Excuse me,
litigation?
excuse me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we get just one at a time? Because
Yeah,
I'm sitting here
please.
trying to absorb all this.
Yeah,
I'm losing
okay,
ground, okay?
absolutely. I'm just
I
trying to
mean,
keep everybody
please
will have their
continue,
chance.
but just one at a time, please.
Okay, so, first, okay, so we discussed, what is the palette of accepting this? Do we have a motion or not, and then we can continue with the discussion, or we can leave this alone, moving forward?
We weren't going to vote on it tonight anyway, right?
Well, you don't have an ordinance. I mean, an ordinance has a process to it.
Okay, so where does this leave us?
So until we get an ordinance, he can't run his business? Is that what we're saying?
That's, I guess that's,
I'm
asking
saying
that question.
that
yeah.
I don't believe that I mean, I know that I certainly am not going to check this box.
Right.
Because there was not municipal approval for a caregiver retail store. It's unfortunate that definitions have changed, but as Mr. Gamage said earlier, forget about the type of business, that's up to the legislature to decide. We don't make these decisions. These decisions, unfortunately, are made in Augusta. But I guess I have a question about when you're talking about litigation, who is initiating litigation against communities for trying to follow the law?
Well, because right here it's, so this is, I have a copy of the statute, from the actual statute from Maine Medical Use of Cannabis Act about local regulation and what the municipality is expected or limited to do as well. So whether it is, so in the ordinance, you would need to write in the ordinance that you prohibit caregiver retail storefronts, which would eliminate most of your medical caregivers all around. They can't meet with any patients, they have to have, it would just eliminate the stores, honestly.
So
Why would we do that?
An ordinance to
That's
take.
what's gonna, that's what you guys are saying, is that your ordinance doesn't allow for caregiver retail storefronts, so you'd have to write that in there one way or another, expressing what the town's wishes are to change the ordinance to allow for that municipal approval. And,
I would dispute that.
Move just to check
Yeah.
the ball on that. An ordinance is gonna require this business,
You can't
so
be
we'd have
sued
to have
for
an
not
ordinance
opening it.
next, introduced further, it'd have to be introduced to the next meeting, so that puts us till the end of June and sometime in July.
I don't think there's an appetite on the planning board or the council to do any such thing.
Okay.
Okay, but whatever, let's
All right.
make a motion one way or the other on this.
We have always had an ordinance here that Caribou does not want retail sales of marijuana. When marijuana went up for vote to be legalized, Caribou turned it down, okay? And we've always had, yes, we have one caregiver, or maybe two, I'm not sure, as far as that goes, but we do not and never have had retail sales of cannabis, marijuana, whatever. I don't believe that's what the citizens want. I've done a lot of asking. I don't believe what the citizens want, but if we were to do that, I think at least we should put it out to referendum to see what the citizens want. I don't think that we should make the decision to have that, retail for cannabis, because I just don't think that that's something Caribou's ever wanted. And
That's a good idea.
I would be
I
no,
love that idea.
yeah.
Yep.
Because we put it to them before, we also did a survey, and it always came back no. And I have had a lot of people come up to me and say, we're not gonna be selling cannabis in Caribou, and I said, well, we've got an ordinance that says no, but, you
So
know.
right now, both shops have been for the past 10 years. It is retail sales. It's just not what you think of as driving through Presque Isle and seeing store, and signs and pot leaves everywhere. It's like his shop is in Caribou. It's very secluded. You have a one-on-one. You have a cancer treatment. You come in. You make an appointment. There's a consultation.
But
then
he's a caregiver, right?
It's the same thing.
Well, it shouldn't be.
But it
I mean,
is. The
well,
caregiver.
If it is, then that should be changed.
The caregiver is the person who can hold, have, sell, wholesale, retail cannabis.
Without a prescription card, without, because
With
they
a
usually-
medical cannabis, with a med card. So you
Okay,
need a med
but
card to do
I
it.
can't go in.
That's what this
That's what
form
that
actually
is.
says.
This has
It actually
nothing to
says
do with
medical
recreational.
cannabis caregiver form. So,
Okay.
I mean, that would be different, I think,
It's
than
two
cannabis
separate-
retail form.
That's right.
Right,
Yes,
so, I
it
mean,
is.
being that it is
I-
specified.
I have no card. I can't go into his place and buy cannabis.
Are you gonna sell
Correct.
Joan any cannabis?
It's-
She doesn't have a card.
But the
It's
thing is,
medical, yeah.
the thing
Okay, well-
is, that's the
Records on
point.
I know, I just thought I would throw it out there.
That's the point of the whole
And you can get a
thing,
card.
is that if you
I
can
know,
go
I know.
into a store
You
and
could
buy
also buy
it,
cannabis on
that
the
is
street, so,
a
I mean, it's like-
retail store.
Well, and I think that's why they changed the definition from office to caregiver retail store, because whether it's at my house or it's on a big store on the street, they're trying to kind of lump it all in together and have
But
this.
still, the difference is a prescription card.
No,
or a-
no, you,
So,
no,
I
it's,
probably make it simple.
okay.
Caregiver retail is medical. Then
Yes.
they got recreational retail. That's
Right.
where you can go in there without a card, anybody.
That's
you can
right.
just go there. What
And-
I'm doing is, you gotta go in there with a card. You gotta
Yes.
go to a doctor, you gotta get prescribed a card to come see me. If
But
don't have a
aren't you
card,
trying to change that to
No.
a
No,
retail?
no.
No.
That's
No.
kind of what all right, so what my office store is now, they don't have office no more. So my store now, which is my office, is not considered a retail store. It's still medical. I'm not selling to rec or anything, but because of the new verbiage, I am now considered a medical marijuana retail store. I don't sell to people who don't have a card or anybody else but to people with cards. I'm not recreational. That would be called a recreational retail store.
Right.
A medical caregiver is for medical patients. Those are the two differences. So when they say retail, I think when you're hearing retail, you're
It-
thinking that's
Right.
recreational.
Like in Presque
Yeah.
Isle, there's,
Right, no. So the retail, the caregiver retail store is the exact same thing as the office space that you're thinking of. It's just, it has a new definition and a new title now.
And Penny, don't we have something again, don't we have a limit on what we were gonna have for retail stores? Did that ordinance ever?
No, we have the one when they had, just like she was saying, there was a time when there were
Right.
only, was it 6 dispensaries?
Right.
And so Caribou passed an ordinance to be able to control where
Right.
that would be located if one
Okay.
came to Caribou. Which, as it happened, the one for Northern Maine did come to Caribou. And so it had to be in the RC2 district, and there were, like, we have to go and inspect every year that facility. We have to have a public hearing every year on that facility, and their approval is done
Yeah.
every year. And we literally go there every year, code enforcement, police department, and fire department.
Have
We
you
all
ever had
have to
any
inspect
issues?
it.
Has he ever given any issues to the city of Caribou?
As safe alternatives, that's the one I'm talking about.
So, we're talking,
Yeah, that's the
Penny's talking about
dispensary.
safe alternatives,
Yeah.
not Richard Jones.
That's the dispensary, was safe alternatives. We haven't had
I've been
any.
up here 10+ years. I haven't had
Yeah.
no complaints or anything. Like,
Yeah.
the crime rate didn't go up.
Mhm.
Nobody's out here smoking weed, getting butt naked, running around, anything like that. It's just, I'm helping people get off of drugs. If you go to the men and the women's, like the sober house, whatever, I donate to them so they can get all their hearing systems and everything. So that way you can keep them people who trying to sneak in and relapse, whatever, from doing that. So I do a lot for my community. So it's like, I'm just trying to figure out how can I stay so I can still contribute to my community and not, you know what I mean? I have jobs. I have over 20 people who I'm employed in Caribou. And so I have a lot of things going on in here. So it's like if I'm gone, then it's really going to trickle down. It's 10 years plus of clientele, 10 years plus of building that I've been doing. You know what I mean? So it's like, what can we do so I can stay here? Because you can't just limit one store at that one location to where, when I am here, there's nobody else that can come. I'm just trying to make it to where
One way or the other, we
businesses-
gotta.
You know what I mean? Like you said, I'm out of sight, out of mind. I don't have any complaints. So if anybody want to come in here and say, if I am here, something's going to happen, I have a track record that, you know what I mean, can disprove all that. So if I can't be a caregiver, is there any way if I can be a dispensary to where y'all can do the same thing with them, where y'all can come to my facility? I have cameras, I have everything that they have. The state even like said, why don't you become a dispensary? But it's, you know, you have to be a non-profit thing, and I don't know how to do all that stuff, you know what I mean? So if y'all can change the verbiage of that, and I can stay there, we can do that, or like they said, if you just check yes, or even say in the ordinance, there's no other caregivers that can be here but this one that was here, or whatever you want to say, you know what I mean, you can change it. Y'all guys have pretty much an open book which y'all can write and say. If y'all don't want a whole bunch of caregivers to come in here, y'all can write that down. If y'all just want me to be here, y'all can just write that down. But how can we do that? What do we have to do that?
We have to have an ordinance, and like you said, the zoning, we would have to change the zoning, that's all part of it, but still, for now, we have to operate under what the statute tells us, and the statute tells us you either had to have municipal approval or you have an ordinance. And you were starting to say something about local approval, and I've brought out my statute here if you wanted to talk about that.
I can't remember which point I was on with the local approval.
Local regulation, and it talks
Yes,
about.
so you have the Home Rule Authority, granted under the Constitution of Maine, and you have that piece of it, that a municipality may regulate caregivers, caregiver retail storefronts operating, of course, pursuant of that subsection, registered dispensaries and testing facilities. And so, and then there's a list of what it may not do and stuff like that. So the biggest thing, and like I said, most towns, obviously that's gonna be based on your interpretation of how that reads and what you consider to be town approval in some capacity, and what that looks like. Some towns are like, hey, we knew you were here, that's enough for us, good enough, we knew, you know, prior to 2018, whatever your caregiver card. OCP says based on your caregiver date, whether you were grandfathered or not. So if you had your caregiver card prior to December of 2018, they consider you grandfathered. If you had it afterwards, they don't consider you grandfathered. And you have to jump through all kinds of hoops because there's a number of laws that you're grandfathered in by that 2018 deadline. There's a lot of rules that you don't have that aren't the same, I guess, or different regulations to follow. So,
Jennifer, do you have anything you want to put in on this?
What I want to put in on this is that gentleman's been across the street from my father for over 10 years, and there's never been an issue.
So what are the feelings of the council? A motion one way or the other to either to accept this or?
I feel that we need to do something to let him continue his business.
So we've checked the box, is that?
I make a motion to check the box.
Now, before I say that, we check the box, that technically now puts him under her purview to go and inspect, correct?
No.
And you-
No.
Hey, she makes an ordinance to where she wants to inspect. I'm an open book. I came here.
No, I got you,
Yeah.
I got you, that's what I'm shooting for.
We have to
You
change
know what I mean?
it to
There
a
has to be,
dispensary.
there has to be quid pro quo, there has to be a balanced scale for this to work.
well, and we can work on that dispensary license to fall under the same, so you have to meet all those qualifications, but then it's the zoning.
I'm going to second that motion that you have pending, and we're going to discuss this, I'm sure, in length down at a future time, so.
To check the box.
Yes, so that he can continue business.
Who is checking the box?
All of us.
Well,
Whoever's
we're
going to
gonna
fill it
vote.
out, whoever's filling it out, it needs to be checked. He needs to continue his
So
business.
is the motion to direct the manager against her wishes to check the box and sign up to something that she has already told us is not consistent with the law? Is that the motion?
That's the motion, that's what you guys perceive it as.
Well,
We have
then
a
what
motion.
is the motion? So this, it has to be signed by an authorized municipal official. And I've already said that by my interpretation of this doesn't meet that. That you need to go to having an ordinance, that this is not a simple, it's okay to check a box when we know that that's not true.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
that's what I'm saying.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
motion is only to check the box and that's it?
Yeah.
Like, the paper doesn't go anywhere? Like, who's checking the box? I need clarity.
Right, who's
Who's
checking the box?
Right.
Who's signing the
Well, that
form?
becomes a
Who's sending the
problem,
form
yeah.
to OCP?
Check the box.
Yeah, you check the box, and she doesn't go along with it, and it doesn't
So
fly.
the
it
lawyer
doesn't
that we
work.
spoke with mentioned that the taxes that were paid is a good representation of knowing business was being done with the town. Like, that's really what she's standing
Different
on,
than
but.
approval, different from approval by.
Right, that's not approval though. I mean, it's not approval.
So check the box and have a municipal official sign off, is that?
I don't think you
Personally,
can,
my selectmen do it, is what.
I don't think you can do it that way. I don't. I mean, I understand what you're shooting for, but I think the technicality of this is that if we say check the box, then your problem falls to who checks the box. And we can't put seven signatures in a box, nor can we have one council member check the box and it rides on their shoulders. It would go to the city manager. And the city manager's interpretation is that she doesn't feel that it's legal. And the last time I checked, we're not in the business of forcing people to do something that they don't feel is correct. As much as people may have a different interpretation of that.
So if she doesn't sign the box today, that's cool. It's like, can I at least get some type of reinsurance that we can work at something to where I can, if I can't stay open right now, that I can be back open? You know what I'm trying to say, when y'all do get
Yep.
everything figured out?
I think
I would
realistically,
like to think we could do something.
I think that there's enough, for lack of a better phrase, I think there's enough confusion that, as far as terminology, wants and desires to support you as a business in our community, because you're correct in saying that you have been here. I think that there's a lot of issues still legally that needs to be addressed. So I can't give you an assurance, I don't think any of us can give you an assurance on paper, other than to say, at least you have us all listening to you and trying hard to come up with a solution of some sort.
I think dispensary might be the better.
Do we have any other discussion on this? We have a motion in a second. Let's vote on this.
That's a good question. Would a dispensary, right, as it's understood under Maine law, fulfill the requirement for him? And you know where I'm going with
I do,
this.
and it absolutely would, and we'd be willing to move that direction. His facility would have to be rezoned, or where his house is, I believe, right? Isn't it a
Yeah.
zoning issue?
Yes, it's on, I was there. It says I'm there commercial from for the glass shop, but all y'all gotta do is just, I guess, rezone it from the R or whatever to wherever, what I need it to be.
Penny, what is that? Is an R2 what?
So RC2 is what we have now.
RC
But
commercial, rural
he's
commercial
in,
two,
he's in R3, you could say,
right?
or an R3. You don't necessarily have to change his zoning, because then you're doing
Just have
spot
to
zoning, which is
elaborate.
also,
Not-
not something you want to get
correct,
into.
correct.
But you could say, like, we have a land use table, and you could say that it's with the planning board. These are things that you do at the planning board level to work on.
But you have the experience, so I'm asking the
Yeah, no,
questions.
but it's a matter of allowing things in particular zones and updating an ordinance to reflect those changes.
Now, isn't an R, if I'm not mistaken, an R3 is much more relaxed than an RC2? To overall, I'm not looking for specifics.
Overall, like for example, mobile homes can only go in an R3.
Correct.
I don't believe they can go in an RC2. I think that's why we changed the zoning on the Access Highway, was because someone wanted to put a mobile home where there's already lots of mobile homes,
Right.
but because it was RC2, they could not. So R3 is typically the most permissive of all the zoning, because typically in an R3 zone, you have bigger lots. So
Right.
you have better separation between you and other homes.
Right, so
that kind of
then you
thing.
don't run the interference possibilities of doing businesses next to residential areas.
Correct. I mean, when all of this started, one of my biggest concerns from a code enforcement perspective was someone growing and distilling out product in an old building downtown with a shared wall with someone else.
Correct.
That was my nightmare,
Right,
was
agreed.
that there would be something like that, and then there'd be an explosion, and then we have to send in fire and police into who knows what, because we couldn't know where any caregivers were. So we're sending them into something with a fire, not realizing, that there could be explosive material, because sometimes that's what's used
Sure.
to
No, I know.
But that's not the issue anymore.
No, it isn't.
Okay.
I'm just saying,
So that's
in the
not the issue
beginning,
anymore.
that was an issue with worrying about something being in a C1 where buildings are like this.
Right.
In
What was
R3,
your
because you
motion?
have more space,
Clarify your motion.
Now, is he R3?
he's R3, as far as I know.
Okay.
But like with my building is that,
You know what I
I
mean?
own all of them
We're gonna
buildings.
just not discuss this anymore. I'm getting
No,
frustrated.
no, I'm.
Yeah,
to
I'm
be
familiar, I
honest
have
with
been
you-
there.
Yeah, to
We'll have a
be
motion in a
famil- to
second.
be
We'll
honest
vote on
with
this.
you, my family used to rent that farm before you acquired it. So I'm
Well, maybe
very
we do have a
familiar
motion
with
in a
all the
second right
buildings
now.
on your property and all that stuff, okay, so we're good with that. My concern is that there's a percentage of people here that would like to see you stay in the community. In order to do that, we need to find a footing that will provide that for you, but in the same instance, meet the legal requirements as they've been set forth. And in the same hopeful instance, to do it fairly quickly so that you're not doing this. Okay, so understanding that, so that's kind of where this is. Is this something we need to take, can we take this to executive?
No, I don't believe so. We have a motion in a second.
You have a motion on the table.
Okay.
Motion in a second.
But my only thing in the motion is check the box.
Mhm.
Literally,
Right.
I don't
it's
know.
gonna do
I
nothing,
don't
Yeah.
clarify it anymore.
but check a box on something.
We can ask
I
for
mean-
clarification from
Yeah.
the chair on the motion, and maybe by the motion maker, if she wishes to amend her motion with more clarity.
I don't know how to make it more clear than for us to make it so that he can keep his business as is.
I was just looking through this too, and the first question is an ordinance or warrant article in effect that allows the operation of a registered caregiver retail storefront within the municipality? So it asks there about the ordinance, but then in the, oh no, because of, you want something legally binding saying that the town approved it prior to 2018.
Ending an ordinance.
Besides the caregiver card, so.
I'm just,
Okay, I make an ordinance to,
motion.
a motion to, for him to be able to operate his business until we figure all the legal things out.
I guess that's clarifying. I'll second that. I don't know how clear it is.
We had a motion that we did not dispose of.
Yeah.
We
Did you
need to
amend,
dispose
did you
of
amend your
both.
I
motion?
amended it.
Okay, that was an amendment.
She amended her motion.
Okay, thank
So
you.
let's keep this.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'm trying to keep this clear. I'll amend my second to that. Bagley?
Please clarify what the motion is again.
The motion is that we allow him to operate his business while we continue to pursue some sort of legal
Ordinance.
means to allow him to do it legally within the new definitions that are being presented to us from state.
That's a long motion. I don't believe that we can, what's that?
That's not what her motion was.
No.
I didn't
No,
think
no.
so either.
What, you have
But
your
that's what it
motion.
means, you know.
Now,
So I don't believe that we have the local authority to, to ignore the state laws. As much as
We're not
I
asking to
appreciate
ignore
the
the state
sentiment of what we're trying to do, I don't think we have the authority to waive or exempt ourselves from state law, so I wouldn't be able to support that motion.
do you have, are you clear on what Jennifer made for a motion?
Yeah, the amended one.
It was to be able to operate his business until everything is done.
Not until everything is done. Until we
Hasn't
go.
hasn't the state already directed you to stop operations?
Yeah, but like how I have it.
So it's a state thing. It's not for us to decide whether he operates. or
No,
not.
until the
Here's
town
thing though, yeah.
It's
figures
until the
it out.
town.
Yeah, so here's how they told me, and it's kind of crazy because
It
like,
is.
in August, Dan called me, the state called me. He said that they weren't going to try to force me to shut down unless the city shut down or force me to shut down, so they can enforce the city.
We're not forcing anything.
But
This-
that's what he told me. You know what I mean? So the only reason why I got shut down was because he told the city to make a complaint, and somehow the city made a complaint that I was running under a store, and that's when they told me to shut down.
See, I don't see it that way at all. I see the state has directed this and now has put the burden on us to try to figure out how to keep you in business, which, I mean, we support the business. I mean, I think we all sympathize with what you're going through, but this is the state doing it. I mean, the burden's on you to figure out how to work in the new state laws without, you know, forcing
That's
us
what we're
into
doing
something.
right
That's
now.
what we're doing
This
right
is
now,
what they-
coming to you guys
Right.
to like either A, grandfather me in, or B, make a new ordinance saying that I can be the only one.
Okay, we've established we can't grandfather you in.
Okay, so if you can't grandfather me in. it
So
says
we
you
can
make a
dispose
new
of this
ordinance.
motion right now and vote on, oh, I guess the motion has just changed. So we're no longer talking about this. We're
We
talking
have a
about
motion and a
allowing
second.
him to continue in violation of law and against state direction. I don't know how we can do that.
I'll call for a vote here, and we can put this.
All right, let's get this taken care of.
Bagley,
No.
Kelly,
Aye.
Lovewell,
Aye.
Terrio,
No.
Watson.
Aye.
Aye. Is that 4-2? Motion carries. We'll get,
I don't get
we
it.
gotta get this.
Well, I'm, like, there's two different components. I'm saying, yes, you can operate
Let's get some
as you
rest of
have
this.
without, you know, through us, through the city. The state can still choose to do what they
Yes,
want.
please.
Does,
Yes, please.
Oh, yes.
does that
Thank you.
solve your immediate need?
For now, it does, but,
This will definitely be on the next agenda
Just for my head,
for the
now all
ordinance.
we've said is that we're gonna allow him to
On the
operate.
next agenda.
It doesn't say.
Allow him to operate until we
Correct.
get the ordinance written.
So by state, you can't operate until that paper's done, so.
Exactly. So I don't think that helps you in any way.
but that's what I'm, like, so here's what I have to do. If y'all were to check the box and I call the state when y'all do send it in there, as long as one of y'all say that y'all did that, they'll allow me to open up. But here's the problem that I'm having, that's why I would rather become a dispensary, because since I have a store at Prescott that's in my name now, I can't have multiple stores unless I'm a dispensary. So if y'all was to allow me to become a dispensary, then I can continue business doing that. Or I'll have to put the, which I will probably do if y'all do decide to do this, I'll just put the store in Prescott with my brother's name, and then I'll just put this in my name, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Again, so
This
that-
topic is
so we can do this.
no longer on the table. We've voted a motion. We will discuss this at a
Can I just
later
ask
time.
one question? Do we have a copy of this complaint? Because as far as I know, the city would never have made a complaint because the city doesn't
Regularly.
regulate
I'm
it.
gonna
So,
say something like what Dan Summer said. I don't know from TV or not, but it's BS. You know what I'm trying to say? Because it's coincidentally that like when he came up here to try to shut me down, all of a sudden that same day he got a complaint to enforce, and I'm like, that's bull stuff. So either he went in there into you guys and told you to write that complaint so he can enforce it, or he just lied to me. But I feel like the only way the state can enforce that is if you guys say something to make a complaint. That's the only way the state can do something. That's why I was shut down in August. Because he told me straight up, like, if y'all don't make a complaint, then he's not gonna make a complaint. And I remember I came to you the same
Yeah,
way. You said
you
the same
did.
thing. So I'm
Yeah.
thinking I'm all gravy. And then he come out of the blue trying to kick worms and get you guys to turn on me or whatever. And since he came here after that, that's when they told me I had to shut down. It's certainly a violation.
Discussion is closed on this topic.
Yeah.
We're going to go to 11D. Acceptance of deed on 49 Herschel Street. Basically, time here. Property at 49 Herschel Street was built in 45 as a machinery dealership. Most recently, as a food pantry. Those have been on the council several years. Remember that they had to move out because there's a lot of damage to the building. 2023 and 24, the property was on the list for foreclosure. All the automatic lien foreclosures on the property were waived for both years. It could be a smaller commercial building put on the rear of the property. I'd like to see there be a public parking lot from the section. Bottom line is, I believe it's Judy Grenier, is willing to, oh, we have some more stuff here on the back.
well, these were just from a previous meeting.
Okay, is
Yeah.
willing, well, is telling the city, I'll give you sign it over to you. The building is talking with our agenda meeting, get everybody out of here quickly. The building needs to be taken down, correct? I mean, it's not.
I mean, it's a big building, but it doesn't have a basement under it.
Doesn't have a basement, it's on a slab, it's not hooked to the other building, glass with
Nope.
glass. I went by it recently after we spoke about it on the agenda. I don't know, we're gonna end up with it somehow anyway, but, we could use blight funds for the demolition. We get the free demo tonnage at Rustic Waste Solutions. I don't believe that she had tried to market it at all. I don't think there's some apartments upstairs. What are the wishes of council?
Can we ask the CUD to waive the unpaid fees?
Oh, let me look here. Oh, I didn't see that.
Have we done that before?
2764? I think you know what we're going to chit chat.
I don't know that we have done that before. I know the Business Investment Group has tried to get the CUD to waive their fees, and they did not. You have a memo from a previous agenda item dealing with the tax acquired property that was kind of an agreement between a previous council and a previous manager and the CUD about making sure that the CUD's charges are paid.
Yeah, I read through that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I was just curious. All right.
We're not
So-
gonna have to that. We've tried that before.
That's fine. It's not a lot of money.
Um,
All right, I move to accept the deed from Grenier Inc., pay the unpaid charges of CUD from funds generated in the downtown TIF district, and request any liens be discharged and abate the taxes using account E8001200101. Fees and interest, and request that any liens be discharged, and then put out an RFP for the building demolition.
I know, that's a
second.
lot. That's why I typed it out, 'cause that's a lot. That's
Yeah, absolutely.
You had to get everything in
You did
there.
a good
And I'll
job.
do the second, just because that's all it takes is one word.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think this is a really good initiative.
I think
by the
so.
way.
Yeah.
I think it's
Not
a
bad.
good start.
Good
Good
start.
start.
Yeah.
So, discussion? Bagley?
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
Lovewell?
Aye.
Terrio?
Aye.
Watson?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Look at us all come back together again. We can do it.
Oh, well, it wouldn't be fun if we didn't have some. 133, Main DOT, Greenlaw Brook Bridge, detour route 133. This is in our packet. What are the wishes of council? I don't think we have to get into too many details on this.
Make a motion to give verbal permission to Maine DOT to use the Madawaska and Thompson roads as a detour.
Okay,
For
the guy from
Greenlaw?
DOT is still on the
hi.
Zoom.
Oh
You can't
my
see him because this computer doesn't seem to have Zoom, but he's on the computer. So, Mr. White,
he
would
need
you
to
like
talk
to
to us?
say anything about this? If we're able to hear me.
Yeah, can I share a few slides? Can you hear me?
I don't think you can share any slides because I'm not hooked up into the Zoom down here.
Okay.
But you can talk.
I'll give you some background. DOT is going to be replacing Greenlaw Brook Bridge, hopefully this summer. From the town line, Caribou and Limestone on West Gate Road. We were originally going to use and sign a detour route to the east side of Loring, using Loring Commerce Center Road. Unfortunately, this project has been around a while. We've advertised this in 23.
That's
We
gonna be
have
nice.
the contractor, McGillen, who awarded the project, get it done by November 24. They had some issues. They did not actually do the construction in 24. McGillen still has this contract, and hopefully going to be starting construction in June. And start work in the water June 15th. And they're actually going to be under liquidated damages starting the first day of construction. They're just going to be motivated to get this project done in 2025 as soon as possible. In the interim, what's happened is the condition of the Lorraine Commerce Road and some of the connecting roads in Lawrence Development Authority have issued has gone down right. Raising the floor, a significant number of potholes, busted up pavement. Really hoping to do this project sooner, but things have not worked out that way. And asking down to Caribou, the city of Caribou, I should say, make use of Thompson Road and the Madawaska Road for our official sign detour. I'd like to get verbal approval, and we'll follow up with a signed agreement here, hopefully within a few weeks. In all honesty, I know the word's gonna get out very quickly that, wow, the town has just paved these roads. Folks will wanna use that road. And the big advantage to the city is, it's part of our agreement, you know, if the road is damaged, sign it as an official detour route, you know, the department will, you know, repair the damage spot. So, it'll be a big risk off of the town, and the city of Caribou. Otherwise, we suspect, you know, most of the traffic comes from the west side, we'll use those roads anyway. Damage those roads, no recourse for the Caribou to come back on anybody.
Does anybody have any questions for the gentleman from the DOT?
Nope.
Nope. No.
Is there any possibility for public question?
Sure.
As a business owner?
Keep it brief.
Just quick question from this Troy Haney from Spud Speedway, co-owner of Spud Speedway. Obviously, our business will be impacted because the traffic is usually going down the Westgate Road into our property. Will there be formal signage that helps point out the detour so people understand, go from there to the Madawaska Road? Just trying to understand, because if not, we'll have to invest in that signage. Otherwise, people from out of town, which we have a lot of, wouldn't have any idea how to get there. GPS is going to take them completely the
Yeah.
wrong way.
That's right. Good point.
Yeah, there'll be signage around the entire detour route, so it should be pretty clear where folks need to go. So if somebody does come up to the end of the Westgate Road, there will be a sign pointing, hey, detour this way. And then to the end of the Madawaska Road, detour this way. There'll be signage at all the intersections, directing folks around.
Okay. One other question, just, the road just got paved. Penny and Dan, you live on the Madawaska Road, you may have noticed this. I've noticed it clearly that speeds have absolutely gone through the roof.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are trying to slow people down going by the speedway, literally standing there going like, waving around, slow down. And when we have an event, that's obviously gonna be potentially a safety situation. So I don't think the Thompson Road that I can remember anywhere has a speed limit sign, nor I don't know if the Madawaska Road does, for that matter. I don't know, and that's probably more of a town issue, but maybe that's something we need to address, is get a couple speed limit signs and try to enforce it.
Isn't it part of the detour process that there'll have to be proper speed signage put up because it is the detour road?
Well, officially, if it's a state road, you know, we are responsible for putting up speed limit signs and during the speed limit. Unfortunately, both of these roads being town roads, it's kind of up to the town. Traditionally, you know, what speed limit do you want? Another tool in our toolbox is, we've been on a handful of projects in town roads, is we've done speed bumps. Thrown up 2-3 speed bumps, keep people honest, and in all honesty, that is almost more effective tool than any sign.
45.
That is something we can look into.
Unmarked roads are 45 or 50.
Yep.
There's an awful lot of traffic, anything coming from the south up to base, all the base tenants, DFAS, Job Corps. They're all coming that way.
That's
That's gonna be a
right.
lot of traffic.
gonna be a lot of traffic.
And including some
That's right.
construction now. Soderbergh is doing construction on the new potato chip plant going on up there. But I believe most of their stuff is coming from the north. Do you have any insight into whether we're gonna have a lot of heavy equipment going back and forth on that detour?
I can't tell you definitively. I mean, current traffic count on the Westgate Road is about 2,100 cars. That traffic is gonna go somewhere.
we don't take the
Okay,
marijuana.
thank you.
That's the road that's actually gonna use it, so.
Yeah, well,
You don't sign the agreement, the risk of the damage is all on you guys. You sign the agreement with us. You have some protections, you know, if the detour's damaged, we'll repair it.
Good point.
I think we can do the speedage signs. But the other problem is that we're not, the farmers there at Medora Farms, the others in the back, they're not done planting. So you're already moving heavy equipment up and down that Madawaska Road all the time. Starts as soon as 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, and
Yep.
it's going till as late as 9, 10 o'clock at night.
and the farm equipment's gonna slow that detour down a lot.
It
Yeah.
is. I don't think people understand there's a
There's
lot
no-
of
there's no other
slow-moving
place to
equipment
put
on
it,
there.
so-
I know.
Well, and the road's not wide enough. I mean, you see
No.
most of the planters and stuff, you might as well pull in someone's parking lot and have
Mhm.
lunch and wait for it to go by.
Agreed.
So,
I've done it.
Yep.
Done it.
How long will the detour be in place, do you think?
I know you some rough dates, we're still waiting to get the contractor schedule, but basically mid-June, probably around the 1st of November.
Mid-June to what?
First of
November.
November.
Oh, Lord. All right.
But they are operating under liquidated damages, so they do have some incentive to move it along.
Yeah.
Correct? Yeah.
Hopefully get it maybe done a little sooner, but
Speaking, I just recently spoke to,
contractor's not quite as cooperative as I would hope, but anyway.
I just recently spoke to Shane McGillen, and his expectation to me.
Can you speak at the, so anybody that's
Yeah,
on the
sorry.
Thompson Road or Madawaska Road will find this.
I had a recent conversation with Mr. McGillen, and his expectation, and hope, let's call it hope, I guess, but was to be done, he started around June 15th with the closure of the road, somewhere in that neighborhood, and his goal was Labor Day to reopen the road, and his further expectation was it could possibly go to the end of September.
That whole thing would be going
Again, I was
on.
just trying to plan with him, because I had heard this, Dust Bowl's a big event, and where does 5,000, 3 or 4 or 5,000 people traveling down through there to get there, go. So,
I move to give verbal permission to the main dot to use the Madawaska and Thompson roads as a detour for the Greenlaw Brook Bridge, number 5625 project on the Westgate Road.
Second.
Okay, yeah, we had a motion, a second. Bagley?
Sorry.
Oh, discussion. We already had that. Bagley?
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
Lovewell?
Aye.
Terrio?
Aye.
Watson?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. White, for hanging in there
Yeah.
for 3 hours.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, main
I know
DOT
this is gonna
slope
impact me, but
stabilization and
okay.
safety improvements on the Grimes Road. What does this require for a motion? Do we have a recommended action? in
Let's see.
the
140, 141?
It's in the package.
It's right here.
Do we
It's on
have-
141.
141.
What are the wishes of
I'll
council? This is
I'll
in
make a
fact-
motion to sign the agreement for the construction overlimit permit for the slope stabilization and safety improvements, project number 022841 .00 on the Grimes Road.
Second.
Discussion. Bagley?
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
Lovewell?
Aye.
Terrio?
Aye.
Watson?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. 12C, we have the library policy manual that's in our packet. What are the wishes of council
Well,
on this?
Mr. Baldwin is here, so he can
Yeah, if
answer
if
any
if
questions.
council would like to, Peter, if people have questions, so Peter, on this update, if maybe give us a brief update on it.
Evening.
So what time are you in?
Thank you for staying awake.
So for the last year, the library board and I have been taking a look at our policy manual. It seems that the only copy that I have access to is a printed version that it looks like the last updates came from the early 2000s. It was exceptionally outdated. Most of the existing policies had to do with the library board being a governing board, which they stopped being in 2013, moving to an advisory board instead. So much of the policy changes that needed to happen were just to clarify the wording that it is not the library board of trustees who make certain changes or approve certain things. and that it is the library director. I did keep the board on there for certain things, like when we consider the request for reconsideration of materials, that it is a sort of joint decision between the library board as well as the advisory board of trustees. A couple of the policies were removed from this book, such as the VHS and CD loan policies. Those are not materials that we use, and there's no need to rewind them anymore. There's also been updates to exhibit policy. This would be things like having art on display in the library. Just to clarify some wording and expand certain usage for that, as well as to clarify certain things, such as the city not being responsible for the sale of any art items that would be in it, that is fully up to the exhibitor themselves to set prices as well as to make that sort of transaction away from us. Computer use policy was similarly updated. It included things like the inability to surf the net as well as to use floppy disks on the computers. We don't do any of those things anymore. It also required the use of a library card to actually sign up for a computer, as well as a minimum 1-hour training session with the library director per person who wanted to use the computer. That's not how we do things anymore, and I would not like to do that. So I removed that from the policy as well. Library card registration. Card registration, there is there are a couple of changes here. This is the clarification of certain word choices such as non-resident fees, family statuses, as well as the clarification of certain library services and access to them. This includes library card holders needing to access computers, or library card holders are the only ones who can attend library programs. We do not check these when we do library programs. They're open to any who would like to attend. We have also added a new policy with permission from the council. We would like to move towards waiving non-resident fees for students registered to an RSU school.
Could you say that again, please?
We would like to move towards waiving non-resident fees to students enrolled in an RSU.
In our RSU?
In a RSU.
In the RSU, okay.
Yes. And then similar updates have just been made to the main laws relevant to intellectual freedom. Updated by the state, and the previous policy book had older versions of them, so I just had them updated, pulled right from the MRSA documents available online. The ALA Code of Ethics was similarly changed and included in the previous version. And that's about it. I do like to do side-by-side updates, but due to the date of the document and its dot matrix printing, it's incredibly difficult to do so.
Wow.
Retype everything by hand, which isn't great for updates necessarily.
Didn't I hear you put a couple new initials next to your name in your signature block?
Yes. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations.
It's been a very long road.
You doing this part-time?
No. Oh, like school?
Yeah.
No, I was a full-time student. Dual master's program. Well, not really dual master's program. They didn't have one, so I was just doing 2 different master's degrees at the same time.
My goodness.
Pretty impressive.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Yep.
So the motion here is that we review the public library policy handbook and vote to update the working document.
Is that a motion?
Can
No,
I take a shot at that?
Yeah, it's kinda like-
Well, it's kind of I guess, a motion, question, however you want to phrase it. I mean, it's late, you know.
Probably just,
working
we
what
just
I
need a
got.
motion to accept the library policy manual as a.
As written, yep.
Oh, I second that. That sounded good.
Can I make, can the chair make the motion? Yeah.
Yep.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we accept the library policy manual as presented. Thank you, Peter.
Yep, and I'll second it.
Second. Discussion. Bagley.
Aye.
Kelly.
Aye.
Lovewell.
Aye.
Terrio.
Aye.
Watson.
Aye.
Aye.
And thank you for all the hard work in doing that.
Absolutely.
Good job.
Sorry, Chad, I just-
Again, excellent job.
Okay,
What was that?
Nicely
He
done.
ran out.
He was out.
Yes.
That's it.
12D.
I can't believe he didn't want to stay.
Police Department schedule change adoption MOU, and I believe the chief is here if he wants insight on this. What page are we on now?
228.
228.
228, okay.
So the police department would like to try adopting a Pittman schedule change for a 12-week trial basis. This would not result in additional hours or wages. This would change the schedule so that the officers would have every other weekend off. So Chief Socia is here and available to answer your questions.
I assume you have support of the staff that you're going to impose this on?
They don't want weekends off. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I hope so.
It's pretty much overwhelming.
I'd have to agree, let's do it. So I'll make that motion, that we sign the MOU with the patrol union and the sergeants to adopt a pitman schedule for a trial 12-week basis.
Second.
Motion second, discussion.
Yeah.
You'll give us an update after the end of the 12 weeks, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm interested. I think this is a good move.
Should help with morale, retention. Bagley.
Aye.
Kelly.
Aye.
Lovewell.
Aye.
Terrio.
Aye.
Watson.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, who was the motion and who was the second? Because we forgot to print this off for the council to sign.
Dan.
Dan?
Paul.
Second. Yeah.
Okay, second.
We're getting down
And
there.
it was unanimous.
I don't.
Jones
I
second.
I seconded.
I didn't make the motion.
Paul made
I made the motion.
Okay.
Yeah, I
He
mean,
made-
okay, we're gonna go with
I
the.
seconded it.
Okay, so there we go.
Somebody was
While we're
here
figuring
and we all
all that out,
agreed.
Chief, thank you for being so talkative at the podium to make us understand this better. We really appreciate that.
12E, we get the fee schedule for EMS event support when required, 232. In our packet, I spoke with Troy earlier this week, and he's gonna chime in on this a little bit because it affects some of his events. And it was brought to my attention, that's why I had Manager Thompson reach out to Supervisor Jane McCall, because it was brought to my attention that the fee schedule they use for CPAC, and there's like a couple of different tiers. There's nonprofit,
Right.
there's for-profit. I don't know if that's something we would want to incorporate in here, but it was just interesting to put that in there, how they handle it, not necessarily how we have to adopt it. So that was in there. I
And
don't
Chief
know.
LaJoy is here too with some research that he's been doing. if
Yeah,
you
please.
wanna-
Please, Chief, if you got some
share that.
information for us to share. Because we have some suggested things here that Dan had suggested, Councilor Bagley, so.
Did you want me to talk to that?
Yeah, we start with,
Okay.
we'll start with Brian here, or Chief LaJoy.
So I have seen what Councilor Bagley has suggested. I respectively disagree with your numbers, just simply because of the fact that $60 an hour for EMS support won't even cover what our overtime charges will be for paying my
So you're
men.
not allowed to disagree because you wouldn't give us cost estimates. So, that being said, continue.
So I have some estimates in here
Finally,
that I can go through.
that would be great.
And were you looking for like what other departments are charging?
No,
I
so
mean-
I guess I need to start with an introduction. We started this initiative in an attempt to get a handle on what the true costs for event support would be, so that we can modify our fee schedule to basically support events coming into the town and not charging arbitrary fees that seem like really expensive. And so so our target was, let's take a look and try to come up with a best estimate of actual costs, and then figure out how much of those costs maybe the city would bear, and like if we were going to cost share with the event organizers or whatever, but at least get to a cost, so that we can have a cost-based fee schedule as opposed to an arbitrary, we're just going to charge whatever comes to the chief's mind on support to the community and to the event. So that's what motivated this in the first place. So I think the Chief Susi came up with some pretty good numbers for personnel and cruiser support, cost numbers, and we didn't really get anything from you on that. So we're interested in personnel, actual costs, labor plus fringe, overhead, whatever that is, per hour, and the estimate of the cost of having the vehicle there. Transport, idling time, et cetera. And try to get a number that's more realistic in terms of cost.
Okay, so going back to 2015, Chief Susi had an hourly pay rate for equipment and personnel. And just to give you an example, the ambulance was $150 for standby at a 3-hour minimum. So that would be $450. And then personnel with a minimum of firefighter 1 training was $22 an hour that we would charge. And that would be basically currently is a paid call member, not a full-time staff. Full-time staff is $32 an hour, the actual cost that it's gonna cost me to have them out there. So 2 of them is
That's
60.
time and a half, including their fringe, their benefits and all of that.
That's the overtime rate.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So 2 of them would be $64 an hour, so that's the only reason I brought up the point about the $60 per hour, that it wouldn't even cover the $64 an hour.
In the scenario I was looking at, it was one person.
So, yeah.
And I asked for clarification on, is it really one person? It seems like you need a crew of more than one person for the fire truck, and I never got an answer. So I went with the numbers that I could come up with based on just, what I was thinking. So it's not surprising that my numbers are not in agreement with yours.
To provide ambulance coverage, we need 2 personnel in the ambulance. You can't
Yep.
operate the ambulance with just 1 person. That's the way Maine EMS has got that written, so I need to have the 2 people.
So 2 people in the ambulance, I'm proposing $60 an hour. That's half the cost. So the actual cost computed was $120.
Okay.
Does that jive? Is that in the neighborhood?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
And this is overtime? Is it assuming overtime?
yes.
And overtime is paid at what, 1.5 or 2, or how?
1.5.
1.5.
Time and a half.
So the $60 for EMS support per hour is reasonable. If the city wants to share the cost, 50/50. I'm proposing 60 because that's what I'm proposing.
I
that
don't
we
know.
share the
I'm just
cost.
thinking based on all the posts that I see out there, that they're only making $14 an hour, so that'd only be $21 an hour per person,
Yeah.
according to everybody's Facebook post about what the fire department makes, but,
So this is what you've.
right? No?
$14 an hour is for a basic EMT. We require a paramedic out there. So paramedic
It has
is
to be
paid
one-
much more.
Because of their licensure, at least one member of the crew has to be a paramedic.
So what I did is I
Legally,
took,
you can't.
I took
I
their
wasn't being
entire
serious.
salary structure. I took their entire salary structure and I computed an average.
Yeah.
And I set it there, because I had no other information.
So
to
120
work
was the full amount, half would be incurred by the
60,
city?
yeah.
Yep, got you.
with. So 120 for EMS support.
Gotcha.
And so how many crew on your fire support for one vehicle, for one fire truck, and a crew of 2?
Well, it depends what's required. I mean, if we're gonna send the ambulance and the fire truck, we could do it with 3 people. I'll just send 1 guy on the fire apparatus, and the second person on the
Oh,
ambulance
okay.
can share both responsibilities. That I was trying to be lenient on that part anyways.
So I came up with $70 an hour for the one person in the truck to sit there idling for an hour.
If it was just the fire apparatus itself, yes.
Well, we're good then.
Yes.
You were right
So-
on the money, almost.
Well, I don't know.
You were
I was
close.
just guessing, because we
You're pretty
didn't have
close.
any other information.
I was gonna, I don't know, I could probably live with something like this. My initial is that we shouldn't be charging for these events, but because it's a service we already provide. But if we can come to something that is somewhat reasonable, that does not involve a whole pile of Carl or finance time, this something simple, it's this much an hour or this much per event.
Flat rate.
Flat rate or something like that, because we, just like I mentioned earlier, to Penny at the agenda, if we had, like, people come get a liquor license for outdoor entertainment, you fill out the form and it's so much money. I mean, as long as we don't get into a whole bunch of extra, how many hours were there and they left and come back, so that would be one of my concerns on that.
So you have to have a truck and an ambulance there. You can't just, I'm thinking, why are you doing this? Because you've got the station that will respond if something happens. So do you have to have?
Well, according to Mr. Haney, his insurance requires that there be an ambulance on site. This, in my personal opinion, this would be very simplified if we're about 5 minutes away.
Right, that's
If we can just respond from the station, there's no cost at all because
Right.
we're treating it as a 911 call.
That's right, that's
But
what I'm.
because we have to actually base an ambulance out there, I gotta be able to pay the men and women that go out there to work.
So,
Then-
before we get down this road, right, we have the source
Yeah.
behind the fire chief. I think he should have, if you don't mind, chief, I think he should stand up and say exactly what his criteria is, and then that way we know
I
what
have,
we're looking at.
I asked Troy to
Okay.
be here this evening. I spoke with him extensively.
That's fine, and I'll just add that, as a caveat to that what's intended here is for us to set our fee schedule for the year,
Correct.
not for this
That's why I've asked
specific
him to
event
give
or this specific
an update.
business person, but
He's willing.
No.
for everybody who comes to the city and wants event support.
Agreed.
Okay, just want to make sure you knew that.
I just figure since he's here,
Yep.
and he hosts at least 4 events a year, that he's a large player, and we might as well get his input as part of our consideration.
Yes, please.
It was a very good conversation earlier this week, so.
Correct, we have 12 events, Troy, this year?
Yeah, not all needing ambulance coverage, but yeah, I think we have 13 actually. I think it's 13 total events, but they don't all need ambulance and fire protection. So real quick, just a couple of things, background. So in the past, we went from, because I've had the track since 2009, so in the past, it began with no charge. The guys just showed up and helped us try to get it off the ground. Went from there to $150 per hour, and that was pretty much was the going rate. And I'm going back to the days of Mr. Woods and Scott and things like that. It was $150 an hour. Chief Woods, at the time, actually suggested to send the ambulance with the fire pickup. We didn't really request a fire truck, nor are we requesting a fire truck now, as an example. So I just want to clarify that. Mr. Woods, Chief Woods at the time suggested it would be a good PR to take the pickup out so that people saw Caribou Fire and Ambulance working in tandem, and they sent it with 2 people. They sent the ambulance with 1 driver and the fire pickup with the other, and those 2 acted as ambulance. The fire truck, we have our own fire suppression on our safety trucks. We have a safety crew. They're trained. They get their the idea is they're Johnny on the spot. And, obviously the idea, if there's a fire in a car, put it out long enough to get the driver out and safe, and the car really doesn't matter at that point, right? So that's kind of the idea. So I just want to clarify that. And then, of course, we've had events like Feed the County, which is, completely was charitable type stuff, and the fire department had come and graciously supported those events and didn't charge anything. So we've had a variety of charges over the years and different ways of attacking it. So certain events that we host, for instance, we have a monster truck show this particular weekend, and when we have car racing, those tours that come in require, their insurance requires, and the monster truck show, as an example, requires that an ambulance is present at all times during the actual event. Sometimes we have stunt shows where people are backflipping snowmobiles or dirt bikes. You can understand why somebody might want quick ambulance attention if something was to go wrong there. They don't want to wait 10 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever it takes to get there. And so for those reasons, we absolutely have to have those services on site. For instance, I'll give you an example. Last year we had an ambulance on site. We had I know you guys will have a hard time believing this, we had a rain event, pushed the show over to the next day, right?
Yeah, hard to believe.
It's kind of a non-joke. So the monster truck show got shoved into Sunday when we had mud runs going on one part of the property while we had a monster truck show. The monster trucks wouldn't even move until we moved the ambulance literally on the other side of the berm. There's a dirt berm that splits the two. They wanted it on their side. They wouldn't move the truck. So we go back to earlier discussions a little bit today in this meeting about moving the city forward with, how do we cover the taxes? We do that by creating events,
creating opportunities, creating businesses that support these kinds of things. And I think Spud Speedway plays a role. I hope that it does, at least in the future growth of Caribou. That's our goal in putting this together. And this is a way Caribou can say, okay, we are open for business, and we are going to support these things because we see it, that it fills hotels, that it fills restaurants, gas stations. The banks, ATMs get used. I mean, we have data that shows all that through Placer AI, and I know Manager Thompson shared some of that, and she's done some of the reports herself, and it does have a positive impact. So my hope is we can find a way to cover this, because as a taxpayer, Spud Speedway, myself personally, and you know, Jim and his entities and my co-owners with me, my partners, we all pay taxes, and we would hope that we don't have to go to another town, another tax town that collects nothing from us, and hope that we can hire them to come cover these events. It just doesn't look good. It doesn't pass the smell test for me. I understand we have challenges with staffing, and I understand we understand all those plights. Believe me, as business owners, we have staffing challenges and all of those things, and we figure it out, and that's just kind of where we're at the moment. But I don't know if any of that helps, but that's kind of the back history and where I think we need to keep our mindset. And that's sort of coming at it even from, forget Spud Speedway for a minute, and I'll put my Caribou Development Committee chair hat on and say, you know, we need to show everybody that we're open for business here. This is just one way. If it was Bangor Waterfront Concerts coming to town and they wanted to put an event on Bennett Drive and in the school soccer field and have 10,000 people listen to music, I would hope we would have our ears open and invite them in and try to get them to come to Caribou. And I'm just making a wild example.
Sure.
But you get what I'm saying. I don't think it matters that it's Spud Speedway. I don't think it matters that it's me or Jim. I think it matters as a whole that we send the message out. Caribou is a place. Bring those events. Bring those people to Caribou. They're going to get the hospitality. We have the recreation center. You know, we have the ATV and sled trails. We have the nice hotels now that have been renovated. We have beautiful restaurants. And that's our sales pitch of why you'd want to be here and not in another community, hopefully.
I think you mentioned earlier in the conversation we had earlier in the week that some of the ATMs, they were running out of money.
We had ATMs that, so a
That's
couple
how
of
many
years, you
people
know,
were
when we look
loaning
back
money,
at
that's just
when we
kind
look
of-
back at the Snow Bowl, the first Snow Bowl, as an example, we had about 5,000 or 6,000 people estimated on Bennett Drive, and restaurants had 3-hour wait lines, hotels were all sold out, ATMs on Bennett Drive got emptied, and that money got spent in the community, and it was all positive comments. We fast forward, now we charged $0 for that event, right? It was a free event, just come. So we didn't get rich putting it on, trust me, we can share the math on it, it doesn't matter, but thanks to some sponsors and things like that, we were able to bring that to Caribou. We had obviously discussions about that, how it taxed the rec department, there was concerns, things like that. And the reality of all of that is that other towns stepped up and said, hey, we'd like to have that over here, and we'll provide the ambulance service, and we'll do some of those things at no charge. It's just how it went. And so, you know, you see that example, and it irks me as a, you know, because I'm trying to develop, I'm trying to see Caribou develop, and obviously I'm passionate about that. I think you guys know that. So it does, but that's the reality of what drives decisions to make business go one way or the other.
Yep.
We gotta change our mindset. That's just my own, you know, and that's a bigger discussion than this, but I just hope you look at it as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming, Troy.
Thank you.
Our chief.
So just to touch on that, as a department head, there's ways I'm asked to look into revenue. This is one of the items where I had hoped to bring a little bit of revenue into the department. But again, you know, it's up to the council what you really want to charge for a rate. So here's the other caveat to this. Technically, we are down 3 people in my department currently. Our initial staff is 15, we're down to 12. I have one out with surgery. He won't be back until probably the 1st of October. I've had one vacancy since November of 2024 that has not been filled yet. And then most recently, in April, we had another person leave and go to another department to work. So I have, supposed to have 3 shifts of 5 people. I have 2 shifts of 4 and 1 of 5 now. technically. We have one of our paid call that is doing like some per diem work. He's our temporary hire, so he's filling a lot of the vacant shifts. And I will be honest with you, I've had this sign-up list in our dispatch since Troy gave it to me on May 8th, and I have had nobody sign up for any coverage for the racetrack. So that's the dilemma I'm in right now, is we can set the rates, I'm all fine with that, whatever the council decides, but it's to find the people to go and actually do the cover, you know, the coverage.
Sometimes the chief has to direct.
I understand that, and, you know, union contract states that they work 24 hours on and 48 hours off, and unfortunately, I cannot dictate what they do on their 48 hours off. And that's where we depend on covering these special events, doing transfers, is with the people that have time off. And summertime approaching, I have people taking vacations, that needs to be filled, and all the while, I'm short 3 people. So it's
Again,
I'm in a hard spot.
Again, that's something for the chief to manage. I'm sympathetic, and I think we all are sympathetic, especially to staff shortages. But with sufficient advance notice, there should be no reason why you can't put together a crew to support a big event that comes into town and serves the community like the one that we're talking about coming up. In my opinion, that's not the council's view. I feel pretty strongly about it. There should be no reason.
So the majority of my personnel are working 70-plus hours a week to keep up with the demand of 911 calls. And I guess I'm just going to relay, how many hours do you want these people to work? They want weekends off too. You know, they need time off. They're getting burned out. And I'm being very honest with you about this.
Yeah, and I believe that. I do. But again, the events don't happen every day. You have a whole schedule out in front of you for the next several months. I don't see any reason why, with proper planning, you can't man those events. My opinion.
And I've tried to accomplish that by having the list out and putting emails out every week, and it's...
Again, sometimes volunteer doesn't do it. The chief has to direct. So given that, I move that we set the 2025 fee schedule for event support at $60 an hour for EMS support, $35 an hour for fire support, and $40 an hour for police support.
For a second.
Motion and second. Further discussion. Bagley.
Aye.
Kelly.
Aye.
Lovewell.
Aye.
Terrio.
Aye.
Watson.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Chief. Troy. Let's see what we're getting right down here. Okay, see, Scott. Oh, we got the easy. We're down to the auditor letter to be reviewed and accepted by City Council. This is just a kind of a formality, I guess, as far as.
Is there anything you were going to talk about with that?
Find it.
Thank you, Mr. Haney.
See you, Troy.
Thank you, Troy.
Morris.
40. I don't know. This is just, what are the wishes of council? It's just something we have to.
So in the years past, they've never asked for like the elected officials to
240.
sign off on it. It was always something that the manager signed off on. So it was different this year to have someone from governance to sign this.
Yeah,
So that's why it's in this packet.
Okay.
I keyed in on that, and I think that's not appropriate. I think that should be stricken from the document. The city manager should sign it on behalf of the city.
Yeah, that actually, because we don't have
The
that.
mayor doesn't
we
have
don't have
any-
that format of a mayor here.
They don't have any kind of...
I mean, some places do.
Yeah, where it's an
But this is
actual
not.
paid
Yeah,
position. just
this
one
is not that
person.
type of locality.
Where are we at? On
240, it's on 240.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, 240.
I
So
think everybody is.
if we don't want to make the motion, does it just fail?
We could make a motion that we.
That we strike that part?
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
can we make a motion, okay, so there's my question, can we make a motion not to accept this and have it reworked?
No, well.
Or you can just have it that the city manager signs it,
Yeah,
not
that's
someone from.
We make
the,
motion on anything, you know.
Mhm.
All right.
I move that we accept the terms of the engagement and authorize city manager Penny Thompson to sign on behalf of the city.
Second.
Discussion. Bagley.
Aye.
Kelly.
Aye.
Lovewell.
Aye.
Terrio.
Aye.
Watson.
Aye.
Aye.
Did you get all that, Danielle?
Okay, so
Thank you very much.
on 12G, June 2nd, 2025, RSU 39 budget validation warrant. This is just the rubber stamp.
Can we make
So
a
it is
motion?
required in statute for you
I mean,
to,
it's-
yeah.
We had just
Even
have
though
to,
we don't like it.
we don't, well, we have to vote to. get it on
Again,
the-
we have to deal with the reality, not
No,
what
you're
we
upset.
like
No, not
or what we
Yeah.
like.
Oh, this is just for the, to go to
Yes,
vote,
to be
right?
vote.
Just
Yeah.
to
To go
vote.
to
Yeah, we're not voting
Okay.
on it, we're just,
I'm like, wait a minute.
we're allowing it to go to the,
Okay.
Yeah.
they have to countersign or have already
Well, I think
countersigned it.
symbolically, we should raise up in rebellion and say, no, we're not taking it.
We will
And
not.
We have the
Taking it
chief of
Send it
police
back in
here,
2 weeks
so-
and we'll think about it, you know?
People on rebellion, watch out.
I don't know, I could use a long nap. Sick
So,
me aside.
Oh, there's days I like to just
Do
turn
we get a,
myself in for
get a
Get a
motion?
motion now.
Move to countersign the warrant for the June 10th, 2025
thank you.
RSU number 39 budget validation election.
Second.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Go ahead, no, it's
Bagley.
all yours.
Motion and a second.
Yep.
Aye.
Kelly.
Aye.
Lovewell.
Aye.
Terrio.
Aye.
Watson.
Arg, aye.
Aye, motion carries.
We
The
get
next
crazy
two,
this
the
time of
next
night.
two things,
Put the arg in
we
there.
do not need any discussion on it because it's just introduce the ordinance. So I need a counselor to introduce ordinance 1, 2025. And we'll have a public hearing at the next meeting, correct?
I don't know if I can do it the next meeting. I
Well,
have
or
to-
down the road.
It'll be at the end of.
Yeah.
Yeah. At a future meeting, yeah.
So we just need somebody to introduce ordinance 1 and ordinance 2, or
Is
do
that all we
separate.
gotta read, or do you want the
No,
actual
we
one
just
up?
have to just say,
I make a motion to introduce the ordinance 1, 2025 series anti-blight ordinance. Also, the introduction of ordinance 2, 2025 series anti-nuisance ordinance.
that does not require a vote or second. Okay, quickly, I think we've got this resolution 3, we saw about the attendance. I don't know what everybody's agreement
Oh.
was. I think it sounded like
I thought
everybody
we
was.
all were agreeing on
I
it.
think, so we
Yeah.
just need,
Yeah.
I need a motion to accept this
I
resolution.
make a
number 2.
motion that we accept the agreement as written and presented by Councilor Bagley for attendance and absences.
Yeah.
I second it.
Okay,
You
second
want a copy
that.
of that?
And
Discussion.
to clarify the motion, that's resolution number 3, 2025 series, is that right?
Okay, I was trying to write that part down and I missed two words.
That was left out of the motion, but I
So-
just
I
clarified
second
it.
it.
Go with the
Okay,
faith
so
of
who
it.
made the motion?
I did.
Okay.
And I second it.
Okay.
So discussion, Bagley,
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
Lovewell,
Aye.
Terrio,
Aye.
Watson.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. Reports and discussion by mayor and council members. Start with Councilor Bagley down here and go down through.
Nothing for me.
Also nothing.
Joan?
If I've got it, I don't have it anymore.
I have nothing.
Hey, it's late.
Yeah, okay. So we need motion to go into executive session,
Make a motion, we go to executive session.
and I will keep
You have
this
to put
brief.
the one MRSA, all that.
You have to read it.
You just have to read
Okay, I make
it.
a motion for executive session for, identified under MSRA Title I, whatever that symbol is, 405.6.
Shut your
How's that? Does that
microphones
work?
off, please. Yeah.
Yeah.
We there?
Second. I second it.
Oh, Bagley.
Sorry. You're fine.
Aye.
Aye.
Lovewell.
Aye.
Terrio.
Aye.
Watson.
Aye.
Oh, my goodness.
In executive session, 9:52.
We are so clever.